Chapter 579. Lin Xian'er softly spoke. Her jade-white skin seemed to be able to wring water out of it. Her demeanor was so soul-stirring that although it wasn't seductive, it was enough to intoxicate one to the bone. There would be people who would want to protect her with all their heart, but there would also be those who were extremely aggressive. The more they saw her, the more they wanted to tear her apart, ravaging her mercilessly to see if she was truly made of water. The saint child of the supreme demon sect naturally had such a thought. Back then Lin Xian'er had humiliated him for the sake of Qin Wentian. Ever since then, he had thought of pressing this woman beneath his body to enjoy the pleasures of the saint child. When this number one beauty of the royal sacred region was subdued, what sort of state would she be in? Is Fairy a weak woman? Back then in the immortal Ripple Pavilion, Fairy was extremely domineering for the sake of a wild man, even allowing him to enter her room. I wonder if he made Fairy happy that night? The saint child of the supreme demon sect didn't even glance at Qin Wentian who was beside him. It was as though the person he was talking about had nothing to do with Qin Wentian at all. If he can't do it, I'm more than willing to subdue Fairy. You haven't asked for my opinion yet? Poison Scorpion's brown eyes flashed with a hint of lust. Such a beauty, even he couldn't help but feel a trace of arousal. We won't harm her life, we will only cripple her cultivation base. As for who will be able to subdue her, we will have to see who among the two of us can walk to the end. The saint child of the supreme demon sect faintly spoke. The two of them exchanged glances, as though they had come to a mutual understanding. Upon hearing their conversation, despite Lin Xian'er's self-restraint, she couldn't help but feel a chill radiating from her. Her countenance was as cold as frost, and her beautiful eyes grew sharper and sharper. Such an appearance caused the evil light in the eyes of Poison Scorpion, and the saint child of the supreme demon sect to grow even more intense. A bright light flashed as Lin Xian'er's astral nova was released. Her avatar appeared, causing this entire space to transform into an illusory realm. She lightly stroked the zither as her fingers plucked the strings. The dancing musical notes directly blasted into the bodies of Poison Scorpion and the saint child of the supreme demon sect, causing them to involuntarily retreat as their countenances turned extremely heavy. That's right. Fairy, you're angry. The saint child of the supreme demon sect coldly spoke. The fluctuations of Lin Xian'er's melody seemed to be able to strike right into his soul, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. Lin Xian'er didn't say anything, but at this moment, Qin Wentian could clearly see her eyes turning in his direction. Although she didn't say anything, those soul-stirring eyes of hers were already filled with words. Just a single glance from her caused Qin Wentian to feel an urge to rush out and fight. However, Qin Wentian didn't. Poison Scorpion was very strong. Although his attacks were not very overbearing, they were strange and difficult to deal with. They were more dangerous than some overbearing and sharp attacks. A single drop of his blood could take someone's life. The attacks of the saint child of the supreme demon sect were tyrannical and tyrannical. Demonic chi towered up into the sky, and each of his strikes could shake the heavens and earth, displaying his overwhelming strength. They were strong, but so was Lin Xian'er. Her silhouette seemed to have turned blurry. The power of the illusory realm made it so that people couldn't tell where her true body was. Each of her attacks weren't as powerful as the ones in the illusory realm, but when the dancing notes slammed into the bodies of Poison Scorpion and the saint child of the supreme demon sect, it caused them to feel extremely uncomfortable. Even their combat prowess was greatly affected. Her melody contains a soul attack. Qin Wentian silently mused in his heart. This lofty maiden, when she was truly enraged, even outstanding characters like Poison Scorpion and the saint child of the supreme demon sect had no way to subdue her within a short period of time. On the contrary, they were forced into such a sorry state by her. When your master implanted the treasures of others into your body, didn't you feel that the treasures were stained with the blood of others? Qin Wentian slowly spoke. Lu Bingyu, who was beside him, was as lofty and cold as ever. When she heard Qin Wentian's words, her palms only trembled slightly. After which she icily replied, "How much blood has your hands been stained by now? Earlier when the two of them were insulting you, your eyes clearly flashed with killing intent. Maybe you are not as cold as you appear to be." Qin Wentian instantly jumped to another topic, causing Lu Bingyu to furrow her brows. Originally, there was no need for her to care about Qin Wentian's words. Given her personality, she had already promised her master that her performance in the immortal martial realm this time around would be even more dazzling, compared to Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's senior apprentice brother. If that was the case, her master would have more face in front of her senior apprentice brother, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. Thinking of the lonely back view of her master, Lu Bingyu clenched her fists tightly, thinking that she mustn't let her master down. At the very least, she mustn't let her master lose face in front of that man, even if that man was the sect leader of the Battle Sword sect. However, this young man who had comprehended 14 sword strikes the first time he stepped into the Battle Sword sect had a powerful might hidden within his calm voice, causing Lu Bingyu to be unable to ignore his existence. This young man should be calling her senior apprentice sister. Although he was just standing there quietly like her, one could faintly sense the ambition and self-confidence of someone who would seek swordsmanship under the heavens. What about you? You should already be acquainted with her. She addressed you as Sir Qin while you directly called her Xian, yet now you are speaking to me with a heart of stone. Can I say that you are not as passionate as you appear to be? In truth, you are also a cold-blooded man. When Lu Bingyu spoke, it was as though there was a frosty intent gushing out, wanting to freeze people. A strange feeling appeared in Qin Wentian's heart when he heard her words. It was as though there wasn't only enmity towards him in those cold words. Even the word man contained a trace of enmity. He couldn't help but feel strange in his heart. Could it be that this Lu Bingyu had been dumped by a man before? Lu Bingyu's countenance was incomparably cold, akin to ice and snow. But if one carefully observed her countenance, other than her beauty, Qin Wentian could tell that she should be very young. Given her age and her strength, at the very least she wouldn't be bullied by men, right? Qin Wentian involuntarily thought of Lu Bingyu's master, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Or could it be that she was led astray by that old witch? The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness has been bullied by men before? Qin Wentian casually spoke, his words causing Lu Bingyu to instantly radiate a bone-chilling coldness. She icily replied, "You dare to insult my master? That old witch wanted my foster father to dig out his bones to retrieve the treasure. Just a single sentence from her can be considered an insult. Now that the treasure is in your possession, have you ever thought about what would happen to you if I were to defeat you?" Qin Wentian icily replied. The two of them seemed to be equally arrogant. Lu Bingyu turned her head and stared at Qin Wentian. Her clear eyes were filled with coldness and arrogance, as well as an intense self-confidence. "I've never thought about it, because the final victor will definitely be me." Qin Wentian stared at Lu Bingyu as their gazes collided. Lu Bingyu only saw a frivolous smile appearing on Qin Wentian's face. "Let's wait and see." As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian stepped out, rushing into the battlefield. At this moment Lin Xian was already being suppressed by Poison Scorpion and the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon Sect. When Poison Scorpion and the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon Sect continued to suppress Lin Xian, victory was already in sight. All of a sudden, an intense sense of danger gushed forth. Poison Scorpion and the Saint Child were already fighting with all their might. Lin Xian's strength far exceeded their expectations, causing their souls to be injured. Hence, they only wanted to cripple Lin Xian's cultivation base before teaching her a lesson and humiliating her in the future. At this moment that sense of danger descended. Poison Scorpion and the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon Sect turned at the same time. After which, they saw Qin Wentian's silhouette flickering like a shadow. His arms blasted out, yet it was as though there were no weapons in his arms. Poison Scorpion laughed malevolently. His palms shone with a blood-colored light as he grabbed towards Qin Wentian. As long as he managed to tear through Qin Wentian's body, Qin Wentian would undoubtedly die. What's going on? At this moment, Poison Scorpion's heart shuddered violently. He could feel an intense sense of danger looming over him. After which, a blood-colored light appeared at his throat as his mind was occupied by a blood-colored illusion. After which, he felt a sharp pain in his throat, as though a sharp object had pierced through it. That was an ancient halberd that seemed to originate from the void. At the same time, Qin Wentian's left hand wasn't idle either. A terrifying palm imprint blasted out, directly colliding with the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon Sect. Although the saint child of the supreme demon sect was strong, under this attack, his blood and chi still churned wildly as he was forced back. Numerous zither notes transformed into indomitable killing weapons that directly pierced through the head of the saint child of the supreme demon sect. Fresh blood splattered out, but the saint child of the supreme demon sect still didn't believe that he would die. His eyes stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. That young man whose eyes gleamed with a demonic light was staring at him as a smile appeared on his face, as though he was mocking his arrogance back then. Lu Bingyu's frozen heart involuntarily trembled when she saw this scene. A dazzling light flickered in her clear eyes. Qin Wentian had killed two powerful heaven-chosen the moment he acted. She could naturally tell how precise Qin Wentian's grasp of timing was. This was why he was able to create such a sure kill attack, causing the two of them to lose the chance to flee. So it turned out that it wasn't that he didn't want to act, but rather, he was waiting for an opportunity to deal a fatal blow, directly eliminating two powerful opponents. However, very swiftly, Lu Bingyu's countenance returned to normal, as cold as snow. But even so, he still couldn't obstruct her path. In this place there was no one who could obstruct her. She had to surpass the most dazzling character in the Heavenly Dipper realm of the Battle Sword sect, Ji Feishue. Lin Xian'er stared at Qin Wentian. She lowered her head before raising it again. Those beautiful eyes of hers that could mesmerize the masses flickered with a bright light. This demon-like young man in front of her was extremely ordinary and quiet. But what sort of pride and ambitions did he have in his heart? Seeing that you didn't act, Xian'er truly felt a little disappointed. Lin Xian'er gently smiled. Before this, Qin Wentian was merely spectating from the sidelines. Although Lin Xian'er didn't say anything, she understood their respective standpoints. If she failed to Qin Wentian, wasn't it a good thing? He would have one less powerful opponent. But even so, she couldn't help but feel a tinge of disappointment in her heart. Saving the damsel in distress at the most crucial moment would move people's hearts. This is especially so for a beauty like Xian'er. Qin Wentian shrugged as he jokingly spoke. Such a response from Qin Wentian caused Lin Xian'er to be stunned. She stared at the young man with the radiant smile on his face, and finally, she couldn't help but to giggle. She was actually being teased by a man. But at this moment, a thought appeared in her mind. She wanted to know what Qin Wentian was thinking in his heart. Lin Xian'er's smile caused even Qin Wentian, who was joking, to fall into a daze. The two of them didn't seem to be enemies at all, causing Qin Wentian to be unable to bear to continue fighting. "I withdraw." A melodious voice rang out. Staring at the beautiful woman before him who had a bashful smile on her face as she turned and left, Qin Wentian was completely stunned. "I take back my previous words. How can someone like Sir Qin be beneath the 8 era-suppressing geniuses?" Lin Xian'er's melodious voice rang out elegantly, after which she really left the pagoda. Chapter 580. Lin Xian'er's withdrawal caused Qin Wentian to feel a trace of surprise. After all, he had personally witnessed Lin Xian'er's strength. She was able to withstand the combined attacks of Poison Scorpion and the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon Sect, even injuring them. Such tyrannical strength wasn't as weak as she appeared on the surface. Not only that, Qin Wentian had a slight understanding of Lin Xian. Her heart was higher than the heavens, and she was extremely arrogant. But right now, she actually chose to give up with a smile on her face. In this journey to the immortal martial realm, which heaven-chosen didn't have wild ambitions. Although it seemed like they were only competing against Heavenly Dipper sovereigns in the immortal martial realm. Those who entered the immortal martial realm represented an entire era. They were the future of the royal sacred region, and since they could become the most dazzling existences in the immortal martial realm, their future would definitely not be ordinary. Hence, no one was willing to give up, even if it was a single defeat. They didn't know what impact a single defeat would have on them in the future. But everyone was very clear that if they wanted to become the most dazzling existence, they couldn't afford to lose even a single time. Qin Wentian stared at that soul-stirring smile as he recalled that night when Lin Xian'er told him about the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. She said that those 8 were even more outstanding existences compared to him, Qin Wentian. But now she had changed her words. Most probably, in Lin Xian'er's heart, she already viewed Qin Wentian as an existence as dazzling as those 8, even if his current combat prowess was still lacking. Nodding his head to Lin Xian Qin Wentian's eyes turned to the last remaining silhouette, Lu Bingyu. Lu Bingyu was also looking at him. An incomparably resolute conviction could be seen in her eyes. That was the determination to win. Her lips parted as she emotionlessly stated, "You won't be able to defeat me. Since we are both from the same sect, I don't wish to injure you. You can leave." Staring at Lu Bingyu's countenance, her long eyelashes added a few hints of beauty to her emotionless eyes. Qin Wentian mused that if Lu Bingyu wasn't so cold, she would definitely be an existence capable of bringing calamity to empires. The coldness she exuded seemed to be ingrained in her bones, causing others to be unable to get close to her. Even if one stood before her, they would feel that they were very far away. Lu Bingyu's words caused Qin Wentian to feel a little taken aback. Seems like what he said was true. Although she looked so cold, her heart wasn't as cold as her appearance. In the immortal martial realm, the moment one stood on the opposite side, the friendship of being from the same sect was insignificant. Both of them were equally proud geniuses. Could it be that the other party would give up just because they were from the same sect and give the glory to the other party? This was also the reason why he didn't feel surprised when that expert from the battlesword sect sneak attacked Qin Wentian. Maybe when facing external enemies, the friendship of being from the same sect could become a rope that bound them together, allowing them to fight shoulder to shoulder for the glory of their sect. But in this realm, the opponent was an enemy. Lu Bingyu wouldn't give up. Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't give up as well. However, wasn't this woman as cold as ice a little too confident in herself? "Let's fight." Qin Wentian wielded the ancient halberd in his hands as he spoke. The instant the sound of his voice faded, frost danced in the air as this entire space abruptly turned exceptionally cold. Lu Bingyu quietly stood there, as though she was standing in a snowfield. The fluttering snowflakes contained a biting cold intent, as well as a bone-piercing sharpness. When they landed on Qin Wentian, they felt as though they were as sharp as swords, wanting to lacerate Qin Wentian's skin. Ji Feishua's drifting snow sky swordplay. "I'm not any weaker than him." Lu Bingyu suddenly spoke. Her tone was as cold as ever. But from her words, Qin Wentian could sense that she wanted to contend against Ji Feishua. As one of the era-suppressing geniuses, there was no need to doubt Ji Feishua's status in the battlesword sect. He was the most dazzling existence in the heavenly Dipper realm. No matter how outstanding the others were, they were all suppressed by Ji Feishua. Most probably, Lu Bingyu, the personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, was the same. The snowflakes grew sharper and sharper, as though they could really lacerate a human's body. Qin Wentian's blood surged. His entire person exuded an incomparably demonic aura. His gaze was filled with loftiness as he stared at Lu Bingyu. The ancient halberd in his hands shone with a terrifying astral light, as well as a hint of blood red. At this moment, Qin Wentian felt extremely cold. When the will of a mandate at the perfection boundary landed on him, even though Qin Wentian's bloodline was extremely powerful and his demonic qi enveloped him, he still couldn't help but feel a bone-chilling coldness. Not only that, there was also a sharpness to this coldness. Bz. A surge of sword might gushed forth, hidden within the snowflakes that filled the skies, shooting towards Qin Wentian. Lu Bingyu's hands were already on the hilt of her sword, as though she was about to draw it out. The might of this attack grew stronger and stronger. Boom! Qin Wentian stepped out, releasing his sword-type Astral Nova. In an instant, a surge of sword might envelop the area, wanting to break apart Lu Bingyu's attack. With a single step, he transformed into a series of afterimages as the ancient halberd stabbed out explosively, aiming for Lu Bingyu's head. The humming of a sword could be heard as Lu Bingyu drew her sword. The cold light from her sword shone upon Qin Wentian's countenance, causing his ancient halberd to be blocked. The overwhelming might of the halberd directly shattered the sword. After all, this halberd of Qin Wentian's was an attack infused with the will of his mandate. The might of this attack was extremely tyrannical. However, the shattered sword transformed into beams of terrifying cold light, explosively blasting towards Qin Wentian. A raging wind gusted by. Qin Wentian dodged to the side, only to see the snowflakes engulfing his body. The sword chi before Lu Bingyu instantly condensed into a sword, as she slashed out towards Qin Wentian. The snowflakes filled the skies, transforming into a sword of cold light that could sweep away everything. wanting to sever this entire space apart. Lin Xian'er, who was below, paid close attention to this attack. When she saw how exquisite Lu Bingyu's sword technique was, her heart involuntarily trembled. The cold light from that sword left behind a trail of white light in the air. How powerful was that? Astral energy gushed forth from Qin Wentian's body. With a lift of his hand, he slashed out with his halberd. His movements were so natural and casual, as though it was as simple as waving his hands. Qin Wentian had trained his halberd hundreds and thousands of times. His halberd was no different from his hands, and the speed of his attack was extremely fast. Bang! A surge of destructive energy erupted forth. That white light collided with the halberd, transforming into a destructive shockwave. White light continued to whiz past Qin Wentian from both sides, lacerating his robes as he felt a chill run down his spine. However, this was only the beginning of Lu Bingyu's attack. Just as Qin Wentian blocked the attack, he saw Lu Bingyu's silhouette slowly walking over. She stabbed out with her sword, and her sword technique was as cold as ever. It was as though the instant her sword stabbed out, one could feel the coldness in their body, as though they were about to die under her sword. The frost in the air transformed into a gigantic winter plum blossom. This winter plum blossom bloomed from the center of the sword, aiming to devour Qin Wentian. It was beautiful and demonic. Qin Wentian's left hand had long been preparing a tyrannical attack. With a single palm strike, the force of a raging tempest gushed forth, stacking together with millions of palm imprints, causing a thunderous boom to echo out. When the palm strike landed in the center of the winter plum blossom, it was instantly annihilated. Although the winter plum blossom had withered, its petals were still fluttering in the air, as cold and sharp as ever. Amidst the snowy petals, a speck of cold light appeared, aiming for Qin Wentian's throat. It was so fast that Qin Wentian felt as though the blood flowing in his throat had frozen. It was as though Qin Wentian had already predicted that his opponent's sword would arrive. His ancient halberd once again collided with Lu Bingyu, and both of them were forced backwards from the impact. Lu Bingyu stood there, the coldness radiating from her body extended outwards. Instantly, this entire space seemed to have transformed into a world of ice and snow, growing colder and colder. Are you really not willing to give up? Lu Bingyu stared at Qin Wentian as she coldly spoke. My next attack might really kill you. If you can kill me, I won't have any resentment. Qin Wentian was as calm as ever. Lu Bingyu lightly nodded her head, and after that, her sword slashed downwards. A casual sword strike of hers was akin to a beam of cold light, containing the speed of the wind and the power of lacerations. Qin Wentian's ancient halberd vanished. Both of his palms contained a fearsome might as he blasted out a palm strike, shattering Lu Bingyu's sword technique. After that, Lu Bingyu's sword technique was completely unleashed. Lin Xian'er quietly watched on from below. Lu Bingyu's sword slashed out again and again. Her sword was cold yet elegant, and she was so calm. Her sword danced together with the frost in the air, unstoppable. There was no place her sword couldn't reach. Staring at her sword technique, a hint of admiration flashed in Lin Xian'er's eyes. Such a beautiful and elegant woman, she should be even more dazzling. It was just that under the guidance of that stubborn old woman, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, would Lu Bingyu's personality also become more extreme? Qin Wentian also completely erupted. His bloodline surged as demonic qi towered up into the sky. Both of his palms blasted out in a frenzy, causing the entire space to be filled with countless palm imprints, leaving behind numerous imprints in the air. Boundless violent sword qi clashed against the palm imprints in the air. Lu Bingyu was dancing amidst the snowflakes in sword light. However, at this moment, a thunderous boom rang out, originating from the void. Her countenance abruptly changed as she retreated, after which an indomitable aura gushed forth from her. A crashing sound spread out, and a faint axe light erupted from her body. Along with the sword qi on her body, the axe light cleaved down and split apart the palm print that came from the void. However, this also made her heart tremble. This kind of void palm print was too powerful. Not only was it powerful in terms of attack power, but it was also very stealthy. Once it appeared, this terrifying palm print would directly fall on your head. How terrifying was that? How terrifying was that? Busy. Bathing in the axe light, Lu Bingyu brandished her sword once again. The might of her sword art grew even more terrifying as her attack power increased explosively. This caused Lin Xian'er's beautiful eyes to go into a daze. Was this a treasure that originally belonged to the human emperor? The two of them were evenly matched, yet Lu Bingyu suddenly had such an unexpected change. To Qin Wentian this was definitely a fatal blow. And as expected, Lu Bingyu's sword slashed apart the palm imprint in front of her as it slashed towards Qin Wentian. Boom! A terrifying drum sound thundered out, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Qin Wentian's entire body was surrounded by battle drums. His eyes were filled with disdain as he stared at Lu Bingyu. His body floated in the air as an air of arrogance flickered in his eyes. It was as though he was the only one in the world. Boom boom. Two consecutive sounds reverberated through the heavens and earth. After which, Lu Bingyu felt a surge of destructive might gushing over. The frost and snow in the air danced as she slashed out with her sword. However, at the instant her sword light slashed out, a palm imprint capable of destroying the heavens and earth materialized, pressing down on Lu Bingyu. Lu Bingyu's body retreated as the booming sounds continued unceasingly. One after another, the palm imprint seemed as though it wanted to crush the heavens. Fresh blood dyed the frost and snow in the air a shade of red. The eyes of that breathtaking maiden were as cold and proud as ever. She was like a winter plum blossom in the snow, standing tall in the wind and rain. Only death could cause her to wither away. The fresh blood in the snow added a sense of tragedy to this unyielding winter plum blossom. Chapter 581. Lin Xian'er's beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at the battle within the pagoda. Even with her state of heart, she couldn't help but feel shocked. Although Qin Wentian had already gained some fame after killing Yi Kongfan, he was still considered a rising star in the eyes of many heaven-chosen of the royal sacred region. Lin Xian'er acknowledged Qin Wentian's talent and potential, but she still couldn't compare him to those true heaven-chosen. That was until he killed Poison Scorpion and the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon Sect with a single strike. Right now, as she stared at the battle drums on his body, Lin Xian'er couldn't help but sigh in her heart. This immortal martial realm was known as the Graveyard of Geniuses. But wasn't it also a place where geniuses awakened as well? Truly outstanding characters wouldn't be buried. This handsome young man seemed to have already undergone a transformation in the immortal martial realm. He was already strong enough to suppress all the geniuses here. Not only that, he even obtained a divine weapon from the immortal martial realm. She naturally knew that divine weapons brought from outside the immortal martial realm couldn't be used. Only divine weapons from the immortal martial realm would be able to do so. Maybe divine weapons from the immortal martial realm weren't as powerful as the supreme divine weapons bestowed to them by their elders, but the effects of divine weapons from the immortal martial realm could be amplified to the extreme. For example, if she fought against Lu Bingyu, under the situation where both of their strengths were roughly the same, Lu Bingyu would be able to suppress her with absolute dominance if she took out a divine weapon from the immortal martial realm. Not only that, if Lu Bingyu was already strong enough, she would be able to sweep across all heaven chosen with the help of a divine weapon from the immortal martial realm. She might even be able to reach the height of those 8 in the immortal martial realm. In addition, Lin Xian'er was also very clear that the number of people who could obtain a divine weapon in the immortal martial realm was exceedingly few. Hence, many people in the outside world speculated that the divine weapon in the immortal martial realm would be able to accompany a stellar martial cultivator as they grew stronger, even changing their aptitude, causing them to undergo a qualitative transformation. Back then, the human emperor of Yi was a very good example. Before this, didn't Yi Qingyun reveal his true brilliance only after the immortal martial realm ended? This was also the most obvious example that outsiders could find. But as for what the truth was, only Yi Qingyun himself would know. Qin Wentian could personally hear the human emperor saying that his rise wasn't something that could be summed up by a mere divine weapon. He was mocking those who went to snatch the divine weapon. But no matter what, Qin Wentian had already obtained a divine weapon from the immortal martial realm. This was sufficient to cause Lin Xian'er to sigh in admiration. Naturally, what caused Lin Xian'er to be taken aback was that cold silhouette. That proud and aloof silhouette that was forced to retreat, coughing out blood unceasingly, exuding an aura that would rather break than bend. When placed on a female, wouldn't that be a different kind of strength of character? When Lin Xian saw Lu Bingyu coughing out blood under Qin Wentian's relentless attacks, she couldn't help but feel pity for Lu Bingyu. This was because she started to admire that proud and aloof young beauty. The favorite disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was truly extraordinary. Lin Xian only hoped that this lass wouldn't be led astray by that old witch. But of course, the prerequisite was that Qin Wentian wouldn't destroy this tenacious snow plum blossom. Here. A gentle smile appeared in Lin Xian's eyes. She didn't know why, but she believed that Qin Wentian wouldn't be so heartless. After all, Lu Bingyu was a different kind of beauty. Although her demeanor was a little cold, it was unable to mask her transcendent demeanor. A demeanor that was different from those who used makeup. When Lin Xian saw the ancient halberd in Qin Wentian's hands pointing at Lu Bingyu's throat, her heart involuntarily skipped a beat. Her eyes shone brightly as she stared at the tip of the ancient halberd. On the top of the pagoda, Qin Wentian stared at Lu Bingyu, feeling somewhat moved in his heart. This was a woman who would rather break than bend. His first impression of Lu Bingyu wasn't that good, and the reason was naturally because of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. But as they exchanged blows, he saw more things. This woman in front of him was even more outstanding and tenacious compared to many other young geniuses. Why must you do this? You definitely have the chance to break free from the battle. Qin Wentian stared at the cold countenance in front of him, feeling a little fearful in his heart. Lu Bingyu acted as though she didn't hear his words. She felt a stabbing pain in her heart, feeling extremely unbearable. She was an orphan, and since she was very young, she had been following her master, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness wasn't only her master, she also played the role of a parent. Although she was extremely strict with her, she knew that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness wanted nothing more than to surpass that man. If she couldn't surpass him herself at the very least, she had to let her disciple do so. Hence, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness placed all her hopes on her. Lu Bingyu was very outstanding. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness had once said that among the young geniuses in the Battle Sword sect, other than Ji Feishue, there was no one who could be compared to her disciple Lu Bingyu. Although many people weren't convinced, Lu Bingyu's outstanding performance in the Battle Sword sect soon caused others to acknowledge the words of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. At such a young age, she was already as dazzling as a constellation, chasing after Ji Feishue's footsteps. But today, before she could even stand in front of Ji Feishue and fight against the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, she was already defeated by this young man in front of her. Not only that, this young man was the same as her, a disciple of the Battle Sword sect. What's even more ironic was that her master had once snatched away the treasure of this young man's foster father for her. Yet she was still defeated by him. Lu Bingyu felt that she had no way to face her master. When she walked out of the immortal martial realm, how disappointed would the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness be? Qin Wentian frowned when he saw the despair and struggle in Lu Bingyu's eyes. Since this young woman in front of him didn't fear death, what was it that caused her to be in such despair? There was only one possibility. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness had expectations and hope for her. For the sake of your master? Qin Wentian asked in a low voice. Is it worth it? Kill me. Dig out the treasure axe from my body and return it to your foster father. My master did it for me and you did it for your foster father. Even if I die in your hands, I have no regrets. Lu Bingyu's expression was as cold as ever. She closed her eyes, but such a resolution caused Qin Wentian to be stunned. Staring at that pale countenance, the ancient halberd in his hands actually had no way to pierce forward. Glancing at Lu Bingyu's body, did he really have to break open her skin and take out the treasure? When your master took away my foster father's treasure, my foster father once said, "This is just a mere treasure. Could it be that my rise really depended on it?" How laughable. And after your master obtained the treasure, he also told me that the disciples he taught would naturally teach me a lesson in the immortal martial realm. Given my foster father's magnificence, how could he care about a mere divine weapon? Maybe what he truly couldn't accept was the humiliation he felt when so many experts came knocking on his door. Qin Wentian slowly continued, after defeating you today, I really want to see if the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness still remembers the words she said in the past. As for this debt, I don't think it should be placed on you but on the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness instead. Although the Battle Sword sect has the least number of disciples in the 9 great sects, they still cause people to feel trepidation because of how outstanding their disciples are. I believe that a girl like you should have an even more dazzling future. I hope you can remember that you are a disciple of the Battle Sword sect and not merely the disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. I won't kill you, nor will I take away your treasure. The reason why I can see from you the strength of the Battle Sword sect's disciples is that of the Battle Sword sect. After speaking, the ancient halberd in Qin Wentian's hand lashed out. The powerful force of the impact directly blasted Lu Bingyu off the pagoda. Qin Wentian stared at Lu Bingyu below, his countenance as calm as still water. He had his own principles. The human emperor had his own pride and strength of character. He believed that his foster father would be able to understand what he said and did. Being limited to a mere treasure, that was the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness and not the human emperor. What Qin Wentian wanted to do was to make the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness lower her head and admit her mistakes one day. He didn't want to destroy such an outstanding disciple like Lu Bingyu. Only then would that be the pride that belonged to him, Qin Wentian. Naturally, there were 2 other reasons why Qin Wentian spared Lu Bingyu. Firstly, it was because Lu Bingyu said that since we are both from the same sect, I don't want to hurt you. Secondly, it was because Lu Bingyu was a woman, and an extremely beautiful one at that. Maybe Qin Wentian didn't care about this reason, but it was undeniable that this was one of the reasons. After all, Qin Wentian was a man. Lu Bingyu was knocked down from the pagoda. A look of astonishment flashed in her clear eyes as she inclined her head and stared at the young man on top of the pagoda. At this moment, Qin Wentian was also looking at her. She could see the resolution and determination in his eyes, as well as a sense of lofty conviction. Qin Wentian stepped towards the top of the pagoda. All his competitors had been knocked down. There was no longer anyone who could obstruct him from ascending to the peak. The white light grew stronger and stronger, causing a piercing pain in Qin Wentian's eyes. Qin Wentian's eyes narrowed into slits as he lifted his hands and grabbed towards the white light. However, he wasn't able to grab hold of anything. The intense white light suddenly grew even more dazzling, and at the same time, a beam of light shot into the center of Qin Wentian's brows. His mind felt a piercing pain, as though something had drilled into his mind. The beam of light that drilled into Qin Wentian's mind was actually a mnemonic chant. The light shone brightly, shaking Qin Wentian's mind. That mnemonic chant was being chanted directly in his mind, so loud that even the deaf could hear it. Qin Wentian's body abruptly trembled. That mnemonic chant was extremely difficult to understand, yet it contained an incomparably marvelous energy that permeated every part of his body. As the mnemonic chant was being chanted, the intense astral energy in Qin Wentian's body frenziedly erupted forth, wanting to break through the limits of his body. His Yuanfu and astral novas were also trembling violently, howling and roaring. The meridians in his body were all trembling, and his blood was like a raging ocean. This sudden change caused Qin Wentian to feel a sense of unbearable agony. With a wah sound, he involuntarily coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. The mnemonic chant grew more and more chaotic, with no rhyme or reason to it. It was like a surge of energy that didn't belong to him, forcefully rushing into his mind. Stop! Qin Wentian's heart trembled violently. Relying on his powerful will, he forcibly stopped the chanting of the mnemonic chant. He was worried that if the mnemonic chant continued to reverberate in his mind, it would cause his body to explode. Chapter 582. Within the immortal martial realm, there was a vast land that exuded an ancient aura. This land was extremely vast and there were many silhouettes here. Any one of them was an extremely famous heavenly dipper, heaven chosen of the royal sacred region. Even the 8 era-suppressing geniuses were included. At the back of this vast region, numerous floating bridges could be seen intersecting with each other, exuding a majestic aura. Over there was the point where the 81 floating bridges intersected. Many silhouettes appeared on the bridges, staring at the vast region ahead, staring at those dazzling silhouettes. In truth, the silhouettes on the intersecting floating bridges were all extremely outstanding heavens chosen. There were people from the 9 great sects, princes from ancient countries, saint children and holy maidens from the great sects, but right now they actually didn't have the guts to step down from the floating bridges. This was because they could clearly feel the auras of the other heavens chosen below. They were so powerful that they couldn't contend against them. Not only that, these people's cultivation bases were still suppressed. If they were to step down from the floating bridges, any one of the heavens chosen below would be able to kill them with a single slap. Even though these geniuses did not want to admit defeat and had a resolute will, the gap between them was right in front of them. They had no choice but to accept the fact that they had been eliminated. Gu Lufeng is still as outstanding as ever. No matter where he is, he would always be the focal point when he's clad in white. On the floating bridge, a heavens chosen from an ancient sect stared at Gu Liufeng's silhouette as a look of admiration flashed in her eyes. Although the royal sacred region was boundlessly vast, given their background and talent, there weren't many in the same generation that could attract their attention. Hence, those who could truly attract their attention were undoubtedly the most outstanding characters in the royal sacred region. Gu Lufeng was precisely one of the most outstanding among them. That calm lake severing the moon, shooting through the 9 heavens, had long since become the symbol of the younger generation. No matter who it was, they would inevitably be compared to him, and in the end they would discover that there was no one who could be compared to such a character. This was especially so for Gu Lufeng, who had no background in the royal sacred region. This made him even more valuable. Are you moved? Next to him was a woman wearing a pink dress. She looked a bit delicate, but those who knew her knew that this beautiful woman was definitely not someone to be trifled with. There are very few people who wouldn't be moved when facing the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. In addition, Gu Lufeng can be considered the most outstanding among the 8. The woman from earlier smiled faintly. Moreover, it seems like he was the first one to walk down. The others only arrived after him. I didn't expect that we wouldn't even be able to get a ticket to this competition. The previous tests were really too difficult. My last test was against a demonic tree. Only 3 people passed the test and were thrown away by the demonic tree. We didn't know where they were sent to, so we were trapped in the same place. After a period of time, the demonic tree suddenly disappeared. Only then were we able to continue forward and finally arrived here. A faint smile appeared on the woman's face. However, there was a hint of bitterness in her smile. However, my cultivation base has always been suppressed. I no longer have the qualifications to contend against those people. There's still a chance. There are some secret realms on our floating bridge. As long as you pass the test, you will be able to head to a place named Immortal Guides the Way. It's just that I failed. The woman at the side bitterly smiled as she shook her head. She herself was an extremely arrogant person, yet she had failed that extremely difficult test. When she thought of that demonic monkey who claimed to be the guardian of the test, she couldn't help but feel depressed. That's right, there are many secret realms on the floating bridge, as well as many tests. There are some people who can advance courageously, but there are also some who have to take a detour. Look over there, Princess Jiao Yang of the Great Zhou Empire. She's extremely powerful, passing through numerous extremely difficult tests and obtaining a fiery steed. The other woman turned her gaze over when she heard this. Indeed, she saw Princess Jiao Yang galloping atop a fiery steed, exuding an unexcelled aura. The fiery steed floated in the air. Its body glowed with a fiery light, causing Princess Jiao Yang to be enveloped in a halo of light. At this moment, a figure appeared beside them. This person was clad in the long robes of royalty, incomparably luxurious. His eyes gleamed with a golden light, causing people to feel a sense of fear. The aura of this person was at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and it was evident that he had broken free from the suppression of his cultivation base. It's Shang Tong, the Prince of Grand Shang Empire, Shang Tong. His cultivation base has already broken through to the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and his cultivation base is extremely stable. He's much stronger compared to when he first entered the immortal martial realm. Someone recognized this person as they exclaimed in shock. The Grand Shang Empire and Grand Xia Empire are both extremely powerful. Other than Princess Jiao Yang, there's another prince from the Great Zhou Empire who stepped forward as well. After Shang Tong stepped out, a few others appeared behind him, all of them exuding a powerful aura as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Such a situation didn't cause anyone to be surprised. In truth, every time someone stepped forward, it wouldn't just be a single person. Occasionally, there would be several people appearing at the same time, and all of them were heaven chosen who possessed the immortal martial medallion. Lin Xian'er is here. At this moment, a series of exclamations rang out. Many turned their heads only to see the silhouette of Lin Xian'er appearing in a certain direction. She was still as soul-stirring as ever, her graceful steps like that of a lotus, causing the hearts of others to tremble. Lin Xian'er is truly powerful. Her cultivation base isn't suppressed at all. The crowd sighed in admiration. As expected of a fairy maiden from the celestial maiden sect. Not only was she beautiful, her talent in the martial path was also extremely outstanding. However, the only thing that made the crowd feel uncomfortable was the young man beside Lin Xian'er. This young man's gaze seemed calm, yet it gave off a sense of sharpness. His eyes calmly stared ahead as he slowly walked forward. Beside this young man, not only was there a beauty like Lin Xian'er behind him, there was also an ice-cold beauty. This caused the crowd to involuntarily guess the identity of this young man. Senior Sister Lu. Someone from the Battle Sword sect called out when he saw Lu Bingyu. Lu Bingyu's cold gaze slowly turned over. There was no expression in her eyes. After which, she continued walking forward. Her beautiful eyes occasionally glancing at the back of the young man. This young man who came from the same place as her. He should be able to become a dark horse in the immortal martial realm this time around. She is Lu Bingyu, the favorite disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. When the crowd recalled Lu Bingyu's identity, their gazes all froze. Such an outstanding maiden was actually walking behind a young man. Not only that, Lin Xian'er, the #1 beauty in the immortal martial realm, was also beside her. All of this caused a look of disbelief to appear in the hearts of the crowd. It was rumored that Lu Bingyu was as cold as ice. She had never walked together with any man before. What was going on? Looking at their demeanor, regardless of Lu Bingyu or Lin Xian'er, both of them seemed to be willing to be the supporting characters. Such a scene undoubtedly caused an intense impact to the hearts of the crowd. The person who called out Lu Bingyu's name earlier was an outstanding female disciple from the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness faction. There were a few other disciples from the Battle Sword sect beside her, and one of them was clad in a robe made of phoenix feathers. She was incomparably beautiful and outstanding, but right now she was staring at the scene in front of her in astonishment. She simply didn't dare to believe her own eyes. As a personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, Li Hanyo's understanding of Lu Bingyu far surpassed others. She knew that her master had high hopes for Lu Bingyu, and this caused her to feel a faint trace of jealousy in her heart. However, she also knew of Lu Bingyu's talent and strength, as well as her coldness and arrogance. This time around, the reason she came here was to challenge Ji Feishua's position in the Battle Sword sect, to challenge the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. But now, Lu Bingyu was walking beside that man, together with Lin Xian'er. The first time she met Qin Wentian, Li Hanyu was filled with disdain for him. Although he had proven his talent later on, Li Hanyu still wasn't convinced. In the royal palace of Yi, he even dared to threaten her master, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. He simply didn't know what was good for him. It was impossible that Lu Bingyu didn't know about what happened in Yi. But now, under the contrast of Lu Bingyu and Lin Xian'er, this young man who she felt was a little lucky, seemed so extraordinary. Stop right there. For some reason, Li Hanyu called out to Qin Wentian. Her voice wasn't polite at all, and contained traces of coldness, as well as a hint of arrogance. Qin Wentian halted his steps, frowning as he stared at Li Hanyu. In truth, he didn't have much interaction with Li Hanyu, and had only brushed shoulders with her a few times. However, he didn't know why this woman would always stare at him with such unfriendly gazes. She had even appeared in the royal palace of Yi together with the Li clan before. But even so, although Qin Wentian didn't really like the look in her eyes, he didn't hate it either. After all, they weren't familiar at all. At this moment, upon hearing the commanding tone in her voice, Qin Wentian coldly glanced at her. His gaze was like a sharp sword, causing Li Hanyo's heart to tremble violently. This caused her to feel an intense sense of humiliation. A cold killing intent flickered on her beautiful face. And this killing intent caused Qin Wentian's gaze to turn even sharper. Senior sister, back then when Master was in the royal palace of Yi, he said in front of everyone that he wanted you to teach this young man a lesson in the immortal martial realm. Although we are both disciples of the Battle Sword sect, this young man doesn't respect Master at all. Li Hanyu knew that right now, it was impossible for her to be a match for Qin Wentian. However, the look in Qin Wentian's eyes made her feel extremely uncomfortable. Hence, she spoke to Lu Bingyu, hoping that she could borrow Lu Bingyu's strength to deal with Qin Wentian. She didn't want to walk together with him just because they were from the same sect. A cold light flashed in Lu Bingyu's eyes. In truth, although the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness had said this back in Yi, she didn't really instruct her to deal with Qin Wentian. After all, from the perspective of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, Qin Wentian was merely a junior. There was no need for her to be so serious. Lu Bingyu had her own matters to attend to. Not only that, Li Hanyu still didn't know that Lu Bingyu had already been defeated by Qin Wentian. How could she teach him a lesson? As the sound of Li Hanyu's voice faded, a crisp sound rang out. Qin Wentian directly slammed out with his palm, sending Li Hanyu flying through the air. When she landed on the ground, she coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. This slap caused Li Hanyu to be stunned. She climbed up and stared at Qin Wentian in anger, her entire body radiating an intense flame of anger. Qin Wentian's killing intent gushed forth, instantly causing Li Hanyu to feel as though she had fallen into an icy abyss. After which, Qin Wentian turned and continued walking forward, not sparing her a glance. Lu Bingyu also slowly walked forward. Such disregard caused Li Hanyu to feel as though there were countless pairs of eyes staring at her, waiting for her to be humiliated. What an interesting woman. Lin Xian'er laughed lightly. After which, she chased after Qin Wentian. Her melodious voice sounded as though she was mocking Li Hanyu's stupidity, or her overestimation of her own capabilities. Chapter 583. Li Hanyu stared at Qin Wentian, who was ignoring her. She stretched out her hands and touched her cheeks, feeling a burning sensation. At this moment, her eyes were bloodshot, and despite her beauty, she gave off a sense of malevolence. When had she ever suffered such humiliation before? She was the chosen of the Li clan, but today she was actually slapped ruthlessly in the face. Not only was her body slapped, it was also a slap to her pride. Qin Wentian didn't think too much about it. He continued walking forward, arriving at the boundary of the floating bridges as he stared at the vast space before him. After obtaining the oracular chant, a pathway appeared in the sealed public square. The three of them cultivated there for a few days, allowing themselves to recover to their peak state, after which they followed the pathway and returned to the floating bridges. However, the bridges started to converge, and so they arrived at this place. Lin Xian'er originally had a good relationship with Qin Wentian, hence she naturally followed him here. She was filled with anticipation. She wanted to see how far this handsome young man whom she had once looked down on could reach. That day, Lu Bingyu was also deeply moved by Qin Wentian's words. Not only did Qin Wentian not kill her, he didn't even take the treasures in her possession because he could see the strength of character that belonged to the battle sword sect from her. After hearing such words, even after Lu Bingyu was smashed down from the pagoda by his halberd, she didn't feel any hatred or resentment towards him. Her heart was unable to calm down even after a long time. She kept thinking about how she should deal with the complicated emotions in her heart. Finally, her heart gave her an answer. She wouldn't hate Qin Wentian, but she would work hard to become more outstanding, stronger. Until one day, she regained her pride and defeated Qin Wentian. Although the disciples of the Battle Sword sect were united, they also encouraged competition and competition. Hence, they would never stop the competition between disciples. The journey to the immortal martial realm hadn't ended yet. She still had a chance. Since Qin Wentian could rise up in the immortal martial realm, why couldn't she undergo a transformation in the immortal martial realm? Qin Wentian and the two others who were the center of attention of the crowd finally stepped out, leaving behind three dazzling silhouettes that impacted the hearts of the spectators. Many years later, when they thought of the legendary characters of the royal sacred region, they would still involuntarily recall this scene today. That handsome young man, in contrast to the number one beauty of the royal sacred region, Lin Xian'er, as well as the ice-cold beauty of the battle sword sect, Lu Bingyu. His silhouette seemed so majestic and imposing, like an insurmountable mountain. Hanyu. Beside Li Hanyu, a disciple who had a good relationship with her wanted to persuade her, only to see that Li Hanyu's bloodshot eyes were filled with killing intent, so cold that it seeped into one's bones. When Li Hantian arrives, I will definitely get Big Brother Hantian to shred him into 1,000 pieces. Li Hanyu didn't know that Li Hantian had already died in the battle against Qin Wentian, Lu Bingyu, and the others. Qin Wentian and the two others landed on the ground, their gazes staring ahead. Over there were numerous gigantic stone monuments that could be called stone ramparts. Each of the stone monuments glowed with an intense light, and each of them seemed to contain an ancient history, bearing witness to the rise of many geniuses. In front of these stone monuments, there was a row of white-robed figures. These people had tranquil expressions on their faces, as though they were people who lived in seclusion. They were the envoys of the immortal martial realm, and were stationed here to guard this place. Other than them, in the vast area in front of the stone monuments, were the most dazzling geniuses of the royal sacred region who had their cultivation bases unrestricted. They all quietly stood there, as though they didn't have the slightest intention of competing against each other. Qin Wentian also saw familiar faces, including the two heaven chosen from the Battle Sword sect. One of them was naturally the incomparably dazzling Ji Feishue, and the other was Duan Han. Qin Wentian was extremely happy that Duan Han had also arrived here. As a personal disciple of the Sword Sovereign, Duan Han was usually extremely calm, but when he was brazen, he was a completely different person. No matter where he was placed, Duan Han would definitely be able to radiate a radiance that belonged to him. Other than Duan Han, there was naturally Di Shi who had a grudge against him, as well as the Prince of Granshang Shang Tong. Evidently, when they saw Qin Wentian, their eyes flickered with coldness. This was especially so for Di Shi. The killing intent radiating from him was completely unmasked as it gushed towards Qin Wentian. After all, Qin Wentian had killed his younger brother in front of so many people. He had yet to avenge this debt. However, before Di Shi made a move against Qin Wentian, Ji Feishue and Duan Han had already walked towards Qin Wentian, causing Di Shi to dispel the thought of directly killing Qin Wentian. In the Battle Sword sect, there were 4 heaven chosen who managed to reach this step. One of them was an error-suppressing genius, Ji Feishue. If they clashed, the one who would be at a disadvantage would definitely be Di Shi. Junior brother Qin, junior sister Lu. A smile flickered in Ji Feishue's eyes as he felt gratified in his heart. There were 4 people from the Battle Sword sect who could reach this step. This was something worthy of pride. Duan Han walked behind Ji Feishue, and when he saw Lu Bingyu walking together with Qin Wentian, an expression of interest involuntarily appeared in his eyes. This was especially so when he saw that other than Lu Bingyu, the number 1 beauty of the royal sacred region, Lin Xian was also walking together with Qin Wentian. And when he thought of Mo Qingqing and Qing Duan Han couldn't help but feel jealous of this junior brother of his. Wasn't his luck with women a little too good? Leaving aside Lin Xian he naturally understood what sort of character Lu Bingyu was. She was the favorite disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, an iceberg beauty of the Battle Sword sect. Many people joked that she and Ji Feishue were a match made in heaven. Even their master, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, had once jokingly said that the two of them were extremely compatible, and even had the intention of matchmaking them. Only the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness attitude towards this was extremely cold. She had always hoped that Lu Bingyu would be able to surpass Ji Feishue. But in truth, in the Battle Sword sect, many people already treated Ji Feishue and Lu Bingyu as a pair. Lu Bingyu, who was behind Qin Wentian, glanced at Ji Feishue. There wasn't much emotion in her cold and beautiful eyes, but after that, she involuntarily glanced at Qin Wentian. For some reason, she couldn't help but compare the two of them in her heart. In the past, her only goal was Ji Feishue. Hence, she paid a lot of attention to Ji Feishue. She had naturally heard of the rumors, and occasionally, strange waves would appear in her heart. Even she herself wasn't clear about her opinion of Ji Feishue. She only knew that he was extremely outstanding, and her goal was to surpass him. Very swiftly, Lu Bingyu retracted her thoughts, silently musing that she was thinking too much. She could see the light in Ji Feishue's eyes growing brighter and brighter. Although Qin Wentian was outstanding enough, there should still be some disparity between him and Ji Feishue. It was just that she didn't know which of the two of them would be able to shoulder the banner of the younger generation of the Battle Sword sect in the future. Senior brother. Qin Wentian still admired Ji Feishue. He was the pride of the younger generation of the Battle Sword sect. His smile was sincere, And he didn't have any arrogance in front of the other disciples of the battle sword sect. Back then, he even helped Qin Wentian out of a predicament. Such a character was truly worthy of respect. Junior brother, being able to reach this step is already sufficient to show how outstanding you are. Next, the path of the stone monument will be the true test. Try your best to walk as far as you can. The further you walk, the more benefits you would obtain, and the higher your position on the ranking monument of the immortal martial realm would be. Ji Feishue smiled as he continued, "This is the final battle of the immortal martial realm. You must know that when we walk towards the stone monument, our names will appear on the stone monument outside. Very soon, junior brother, your name will be in the limelight of tens of thousands of people, allowing your name to continuously float up. I wonder how many people's hearts would be stirred." Qin Wentian nodded his head. His gaze turned to this vast space, staring at the heavens chosen. Those gathered here were the most outstanding heavens chosen who entered the immortal martial realm, including the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. Very soon, they would walk towards the stone monument that recorded the history of the immortal martial realm. The wind gusted by, fluttering the long hair and robes of everyone. Some stood with their eyes closed, while others sat cross-legged. Qin Wentian called out to Ji Feishue before he sat down on the ground and started to meditate. The long robes of the envoys of the immortal martial realm fluttered in the wind. They didn't say anything, indicating that they were still waiting. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. A few more silhouettes arrived. At the intersection point of the floating bridges, Yi Lingshuang and the rest appeared. Fan Lu Ouyang and the rest were there as well. They had barged into many secret realms and passed many tests, yet they still couldn't lift the restriction on their cultivation bases. Luckily, the gate of the immortal martial realm opened, allowing them to arrive here. From now on, I won't be able to fight shoulder to shoulder with you. Fatty's lips curled up in a smile, as though he was proud of that young man. At this moment, his black eyes didn't have the slightest trace of the wretchedness from before. Instead, they gleamed with sharpness. He would forever remember that day when they met in the royal capital of Chu. They had registered for the academy's examination and entered the dark forest together. At that time, who would have thought that after so many years, that immature young man would have such accomplishments today? This fellow, we want to shorten the distance between us, yet we only realize that we are getting further and further away. One day, I'm afraid we won't even be able to see his back. Onying Guangxing didn't know what to feel in his heart. There was even some jealousy in his heart, but even more than that, he gave his blessings, hoping that Qin Wentian would be able to walk even further on his path. Li Hanyu was still waiting for Li Hantian's arrival. But even when the envoys of the immortal martial realm opened their eyes and stepped aside, Li Hantian still hadn't appeared. This caused Li Hanyu's countenance to turn pale. She knew that Li Hantian would never appear again. At the same time, the crowd also discovered to their shock that the saint child of the supreme demon realm, poison scorpion of the sky poison valley, or the chosen of some ancient country, or some supreme sect, all of them had disappeared, forever remaining in the immortal martial realm. This damnable burial ground of heaven's chosen. So it turns out that he is destined to be a stage for the minority. Someone cursed in a low voice, voicing out the thoughts of many. They initially thought that they would be able to find a place that belonged to them in the immortal martial realm. But in the end, they discovered to their sorrow that they were nothing more than foils. Staring at those silhouettes walking towards the stone monument, the eyes of the crowd all flashed with a trace of desolation. They understood that from today onwards, these people would definitely have a place in the future of the royal sacred region. Outside the immortal martial realm, countless people stared ahead. Up in the skies and down on the ground, in a radius of 100 miles, it was unknown how many people had gathered. They unceasingly squeezed their way forward just to catch a glimpse of the stone monument that was currently radiating a dazzling light. What names would appear on that monument? Gu Lufeng, Ji Feishue, Disher, one after another, names began to float up the monument, gleaming with the resplendent light. These names were extremely familiar to the ears, and as more and more names appeared, the monument grew brighter and brighter. Many experts from the major powers clenched their fists tightly as they stared at the monument ahead. The experts from the Supreme Demon Sect occupied a location as they stared at the monument. When the names no longer appeared, They discovered to their sorrow that the name of the saint child of the supreme demon sect had yet to appear. This caused their hearts to pound as they felt a chill running down their spines. Many people felt the same way. Regardless of the great sects or ancient countries, regardless of the great clans or ancient sects, many powerful characters all felt a chill running down their spines. Naturally, there were also some who had triumphant smiles on their faces. They saw the names of their own sects, especially those from the Battle Sword sect. The 4 names on the monument were simply too dazzling. The fairy maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley gathered together. Emochingching stood in the center, staring at the 3 words Qin Wentian, as a soul-stirring smile appeared on her face. Chapter 584. Although Emochingching hadn't stepped into the immortal martial realm yet, ever since Qin Wentian stepped in, her heart had been extremely tense. There was no expression on her face, but one could see a hint of worry in the center of her brows. But now when she saw Qin Wentian's name appearing on the monument, her tightly clenched fists loosened slightly. Sweat could be seen on her palms. The experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley also saw Qin Wentian's name. Their eyes flashed with a bright light as their evaluation of Qin Wentian rose by several notches. Seems like the man the Holy Maiden loved was truly not bad, to be able to rank within the top 30 of the ranking monument. However, they didn't know if he would be able to enter the top 30. They glanced at Emochingcheng, and when they saw the radiant smile on her face, their hearts involuntarily trembled. Such a smile was pure and flawless, so beautiful that it caused the jealousy of many women. They sighed in their hearts. The Holy Maiden's love for that young man was too deep. They didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. As the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, Emochingcheng's beauty was so stunning that it was natural for many to pay attention to her. This was especially so for many young males. Their gazes would occasionally sneak glances in her direction, and when they saw the smile on Emochingcheng's face, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. After which, their gazes turned back to the monument. Holy Maiden Emochingcheng, which name did she see for her to have such a smile on her face? As they thought of this, traces of jealousy could be seen in their hearts. If the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley could give them such a smile, even if they had to give up everything, they would have no regrets. The people in the immortal martial realm didn't know what was happening outside. After Qin Wentian and the others inscribed their names on the stone monument, they walked up to it. These stone monuments emitted a marvelous aura. They could choose a stone monument and fuse with the will of the stone monument. Qin Wentian walked towards one of the monuments in the first row. This monument shone with a resplendent golden light, exuding an incomparably domineering aura of wildness and arrogance. This aura attracted him, hence he chose this monument. Instantly, golden light filled the skies as Qin Wentian's will completely fused with the monument. It was as though he had entered another dimension, the dimension of the ancient monument. In this vast space, golden light flashed in the sky. Golden runic lights flashed brilliantly. The golden runic lights converged to form ancient characters that floated in the air, blooming with dazzling splendor. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the golden runes in the air, the resplendent ancient characters. Above these runic lights, a thunderous screech rang out, shaking the heavens and earth. Only to see a gigantic rock clad in golden light that seemed to be forged from pure gold appeared, spitting out beams of resplendent runic light that shot towards Qin Wentian. These runes directly landed on Qin Wentian. In an instant, his entire body turned golden, as though he was also made of pure gold. A shrill screech rang out from his mouth. Qin Wentian's hands trembled as a raging wind howled. He discovered that he actually grew a pair of wings as he transformed into a golden-winged rock. The will of the monument fused into his body. At this moment, he seemed to have transformed into the purest form of a golden-winged rock. His hands were sharp as he stared at the ancient characters in the air. These characters seemed to be branded into his mind, transforming into scenes of a golden-winged rock. Qin Wentian also started his cultivation, using the body of a golden-winged rock to cultivate. The golden light radiating from his body grew more and more resplendent as his wings grew longer and sharper. Rumble! A thunderous sound rang out, after which an azure dragon appeared in Qin Wentian's vision. This azure dragon was extremely terrifying. Its eyes were gigantic as it stared at Qin Wentian. It's the heaven chosen of the divine dragon stronghold, Haetung. The experts on the floating bridges saw the two stone monuments converging together as two interconnected images appeared in the air. These images were none other than the projections of the two stone monuments. Haetung is the first person to infiltrate the stone monuments of other experts. The first person he found was none other than Qin Wentian, a disciple of the battle sword sect. He was the one who sent Li Hanyu of the Li clan flying with a single slap. Haetung is a heaven chosen of the divine dragon stronghold. His control over the demonic dragon should be very strong. Qin Wentian's path has reached its end. The crowd mused. The demonic dragon's large eyes stared at the golden-winged rock Qin Wentian transformed into as a cold smile appeared on its face. This was the first time it launched an attack, so it naturally had to find someone who wasn't that dazzling. Hence it chose Qin Wentian, directly launching an attack. The demonic dragon soared through the air, dashing towards the golden-winged rock that Qin Wentian had transformed into. Its thick and powerful claws directly smashed downwards, aiming for the great rock. Qin Wentian's cold eyes stared at his opponent. Golden light flashed as his sharp claws similarly smashed towards the great rock. The azure dragon and the great rock collided. In terms of strength, the azure dragon undoubtedly had the upper hand, directly forcing the great rock to retreat. Qin Wentian's countenance didn't change. His eyes were still fixed on the air, staring at the incantation art as he silently cursed the idiotic azure dragon in his heart. When Haetung saw that Qin Wentian was ignoring him, a malevolent glint flashed in his eyes as he roared, "The first battle will be your doomsday. Scram, this place doesn't belong to you." As he spoke, his demonic dragon body once again smashed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's wings flashed as he transformed into a beam of golden light and soared into the air. He didn't clash head-on with his opponent. His eyes were still fixed on the air, wanting to comprehend more runic light. The golden light on the great rock's body grew brighter and brighter. Those huge wings were like golden blades, filled with a sharp aura. Roar! The demonic dragon roared. Haetung naturally understood that he couldn't allow Qin Wentian to comprehend in peace. He had to kill Qin Wentian in the shortest amount of time possible and attack as quickly as possible. Only then would he be able to be ahead of the others. Hence, a battle of cat and mouse appeared on the screen of light. The golden-winged rock was injured several times, and Qin Wentian, who was standing in front of the stone monument, couldn't help but groan in pain. After another heavy strike, Qin Wentian even spat out a mouthful of blood. However, within the space of the ancient tablet, the rock's eyes grew even more resplendent. The golden light on its body illuminated the heavens, causing a strange light to flash through Haetung's eyes. There seemed to be a hint of anxiety in his eyes, but if he gave up on attacking now and returned to comprehending, he would undoubtedly be weaker than Qin Wentian. He could only continue to attack with his strongest attacks. At this moment it wasn't only Haetung and Qin Wentian who were fighting. In the air there were many scenes of the ancient tablets connecting together. This caused the spectators on the floating bridges to understand that this battle was a one-on-one battle. Not many people paid attention to Qin Wentian's battle. The battle scenes of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses attracted the attention of the vast majority. For example, Gu Lufeng chose the ancient tablet that allowed him to be clad in a silvery white armor. A sun-shooting arrow appeared in his hands, exuding a suave and unrestrained aura. Gu Liufeng's opponent was a heaven chosen from one of the 9 great sects of the royal sacred region, the Qinghua Mountains. This battle was naturally chosen by Gu Lufeng. How would his opponent dare to choose him as his opponent? A bright light flashed as Gu Liufeng's bow appeared in his hands. Runic light flashed as the arrow left behind afterimages. A humming sound rang out as the bowstring vibrated unceasingly. His arrow was like a shooting star. Puchi. A light sound rang out as the center of the brows of the heaven chosen from the Qinghua Mountains was pierced through. The ancient tablet in front of him instantly dimmed. The eyes of the heaven chosen from the Qinghua Mountains opened as he stared in the direction of Gu Lufeng. An expression of desolation could be seen on his face as he coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. After which, he turned and departed the area. Gu Lufeng also opened his eyes. He lifted his feet and continued walking forwards, arriving in front of another set of ancient tablets. After which, his perception gushed out as he chose another one and began his cultivation. I understand the rules now. On the floating bridge, Fanlu spoke in a low voice. Infuse your will into the ancient tablets, cultivating the energy within. In there you can only cultivate the energy within the tablets and not use your own strength to battle. This way, everyone's starting point will be the same. That's right. Only by defeating one opponent can one proceed to the next one. Gu Lufeng should have already comprehended the energy within the first tablet. By defeating one opponent, he can proceed to the second one and begin comprehending the energy within. This would undoubtedly allow him to gain an advantage. Onyang Guangxing's eyes gleamed with sharpness. If Gu Lufeng also comprehended the energy within the second tablet, it would be even easier for him to attack those who came after him. The disparity between them would only grow greater and greater. The stronger one is, the further they can walk on their path, until they leave everyone behind them, becoming the sole existence. Yi Lingshuang's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light as she stared in the direction of Qin Wentian. He Tong was still relentlessly attacking Qin Wentian, but now it was no longer a threat to Qin Wentian. That golden rock was growing stronger and stronger. He's going to retaliate. Qin Zheng spoke. After which, the spectators only saw Qin Wentian in the form of a golden-winged rock arcing through the skies, diving downwards. Golden light illuminated the skies as his golden wings shone with resplendent runic light. His wings sliced through the air like a gust of wind as his silhouette appeared beneath He Tong. After which, He Tong's demonic dragon form was directly cleaved into two. Pooh! He Tong coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood onto the stone monument, causing it to lose its luster. He opened his eyes and stared in the direction of Qin Wentian, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. Qin Wentian's eyes were still closed. He was still immersed in comprehending the energy within the stone monument. There were many people like him who were extremely cautious, choosing to focus on comprehending instead of fighting. But as time flowed on, more and more victors appeared, moving towards the stone monument in the front. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Initially, there were over 70 people standing before the stone monument, but now there were only 36 remaining. Gu Lufeng has already consecutively defeated 3 people, and is moving towards the 4th row. There's only one person standing before the 4th row now. Everyone had expressions of shock on their faces. This Gu Lufeng was too powerful. Every time he was about to comprehend something, he would choose a person to fight against and blast his opponent away. Also, the spectators discovered that those who walked to the front could choose to attack those weaker than them. For a character like Gu Lufeng, it was impossible for him to stop and wait for others to arrive. All the geniuses walked towards the stone monument at the same time. To them it was all fair. If they weren't as fast as the others and were defeated, who else could they blame? 3 days later, the spectators discovered a strange phenomenon. Qin Wentian was actually still standing before the first row of stone monuments. This involuntarily caused a strange expression to appear on the faces of many. Right now, Qin Wentian's name was truly known by everyone. Gu Lufeng was the first to leave behind. Qin Wentian was the last to arrive. Chapter 585. Regardless of Gu Lufeng or Di Shi, regardless of Ji Feishue or Qin Wentian, all these geniuses who were walking towards the stone monuments instantly understood what was contained within. Most probably, these stone monuments were the treasures left behind by the master of the immortal martial realm. Each and every one of them contained an extremely powerful innate technique. Not only that, even if they were defeated, they wouldn't die. One could say that to those who entered the immortal martial realm, this was the time for them to truly reap the rewards. How much they could obtain would depend on their own abilities. Hence, they all understood that the further they walked, the more they would be able to see. Gu Lufeng, who was at the front, understood, and Qin Wentian, who was at the back, also understood. However, the two of them chose 2 completely different paths. Gu Lufeng chose to advance rapidly. Although he had an incomparably resplendent reputation in the royal sacred region, he was also clear that he could be arrogant in his heart, but he couldn't allow this arrogance to affect his determination to advance forward. Compared to others, he needed to advance forward. If not, the moment he fell, it would be fatal. He also understood that each and every one of the stone monuments contained a type of energy. It was impossible for him to completely comprehend them within a short period of time. That would require an extremely long period of time. If he was the only one here, he would definitely stay here and completely comprehend each and every stone monument. But this was the immortal martial realm where geniuses contended against each other. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Hence, he needed a balance between how much he comprehended and how much he could advance. This would allow him to maintain the stance of advancing forward, while also possessing the strength to sweep away others. In truth, Gu Lufeng had also attracted many people to advance together with him. Such a situation caused Gu Lufeng to feel slightly more at ease. Since he could comprehend them within a short period of time, he believed that based on his talent, even if the amount of time he used was shorter compared to his opponents, the amount of insights he would gain wouldn't be any weaker compared to his opponents. This continued until Gu Lufeng discovered that there was still a young man standing in front of the first row of stone monuments. His eyes involuntarily flashed with a resplendent sharpness as a ripple appeared in his calm heart. However, he quickly regained his composure and continued to focus on doing his best. This was Gu Liufeng's personality. Wasn't Qin Wentian also taking a risk? If he remained in front of the first row of stone monuments, there was a high possibility that he would be left far behind by the others and be eliminated. There's no such thing as perfection, it all depends on which path you choose to walk. Qin Wentian's thoughts were very simple. The resplendent runic light within the monument contained an energy that he desperately needed. Since he didn't even manage to consume it, what's the point of digesting the rest? He hoped that he would be able to use this monument to truly improve himself. Even if he were to be eliminated, he wouldn't regret his choice. Basically, no one is paying attention to his existence. A few young men from the heaven-holding sect of the northern region gathered together. One of them had a mocking expression on his face as he stared at the silhouette of Qin Wentian. His eyes flickered with disdain as he stared at the silhouette of Qin Wentian. This mocking voice caused many in the surroundings to laugh. It was unknown if they were jealous that Qin Wentian had two peerless beauties by his side, or jealous that Qin Wentian was lucky enough to enter the final round, while they were all excluded. Everyone can see that those who stepped onto the stone monuments have accomplished something that none of us here have. Yet, there are still people who dare to slander them. They are clearly slapping their own faces, yet they are still so pleased with themselves. Yi Lingshuang's group was not too far away from them. When they heard the other party slandering Qin Wentian, they naturally felt indignant in their hearts. The people from the Heavenhold sect turned their gazes over to Yi Lingshuang as cold light flickered in their eyes. They could also be considered a major sect, but right now, not a single person from the Heavenhold sect remained behind. This caused them to feel extremely uncomfortable in their hearts. However, the people from the Heavenhold sect weren't the kind-hearted type. Hence, the people from the Heavenhold sect merely snorted coldly and didn't say anything. However, someone from another group of people had a cold glint in his eyes as he stared at Yi Lingshuang. A mocking voice rang out. Qin Wentian's luck with women is simply too good. Lin Xian from the Celestial Maiden sect, Lu Bingyu from the Battlesword sect, and now there are two more beauties here. Why is this beauty so anxious to explain herself? Could there be some unspeakable secrets hidden in the shadows? As the sound of this voice faded, many in the crowd laughed out loud. Earlier, the person from the Heavenhold sect glanced over and saw that there were quite a few people in the crowd who spoke. His confidence was instantly boosted as he stared at Yi Lingshuang and Yun Mangi. The figures of these two beauties are truly fiery hot. That Qin Wentian truly makes one envious. The eyes of the person who spoke earlier flashed with a cold light. They were from the Supreme D clan and had witnessed the conflict between the two of them. Now that they were intentionally provoking them, it was evident that they had a motive. You guys are courting death. How could Ouyang Guangxing endure the filthy words of these people? Lightning and fire flashed around him, causing expressions of interest to appear on the faces of the people in the surroundings, as though they were watching a show. Similarly, their cultivation bases were all suppressed. However, the people from the Supreme D clan in addition to the people from the Heavenhold sect had the advantage in terms of numbers, having two more people than their opponents. Are we courting death? The people from the Supreme D clan coldly laughed as a cold intent gushed forth from them. These two beauties are so alluring, how can I bear to die? There were people who recognized the people from the Supreme D clan, as an expression of understanding appeared on their faces. So it turned out that they were intentionally provoking them. The news of Qin Wentian killing Di Shi's younger brother had already spread far and wide, causing many to know of the name Qin Wentian. And indeed, Ouyang Guangxing and the others couldn't endure it any longer. Instantly, an intense battle erupted. As for in another direction, below the stone monument, Qin Wentian's will was still fused with the monument, calmly comprehending it. He didn't try to invade the stone monuments of others, choosing to silently comprehend the incantation. The golden-winged great rock he had transformed into grew increasingly resplendent as golden light illuminated the skies. His entire body exuded an aura of sharpness. This incantation is truly powerful. It's in no way weaker than the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. Complementing it with the 3rd level of the Fiend Transformation Art, I would definitely be able to unleash an overwhelming might. Sadly, I'm not proficient in the mandate of metal and wind, or else the might of this incantation would be even stronger. Qin Wentian mused. Within the stone monument, Qin Wentian's golden-winged great rock soared through the skies, resembling a golden bolt of lightning. This further strengthened Qin Wentian's resolve to continue forward. These stone monuments were true treasures, and there was a high possibility that the master of the immortal martial realm, who was able to leave behind such a bountiful treasure trove, was none other than a legendary immortal. Qin Wentian wanted to cultivate in peace and not be disturbed by others, but this was clearly impossible. At this moment, another person invaded his stone monument. On a stone monument that was 2 steps away from Qin Wentian, a resplendent beam of light shone onto Qin Wentian's stone monument, instantly forming into a diagram. After the battle with Qin Wentian, nobody was able to see how far Qin Wentian's cultivation had progressed. At this moment within the diagram, Qin Wentian's golden-winged great rock shone with an increasingly resplendent golden light, as its sharp eyes stared at the incoming silhouette. This person was clad in a blazing armor, with a pair of resplendent wings on her back. She was none other than an extremely beautiful maiden, akin to a blazing sun. Princess Zhaoyang of the Grand Zhou Empire has found Qin Wentian. This time around, that Qin Wentian who has been hiding at the very back should be eliminated as well. Beauties would always attract the attention of others. This was especially so for someone with Princess Zhaoyang's status and strength. Her fame in the Grand Zhou Empire was like the sun in the midday sky. There was no one who didn't know of her. Shang Tong of the Grand Shang Empire has also been found by someone. How interesting, it's Ji Lufeng. I'm afraid Shang Tong is going to be in for a tragedy. The spectator saw another scene. Ji Lufeng was preparing to act. Lin Xian'er has been targeted by Qi Lian of the Blood Devil Palace. Seems like all 3 battles will erupt at the same time. Lin Xian'er's path in the immortal martial realm has come to an end. The spectator saw yet another heavyweight battle. It wasn't that they looked down on Lin Xian'er's strength. In truth, in the battle earlier, Lin Xian'er had also defeated one of her opponents. But now her opponent was Qi Lian of the Blood Devil Palace. Qi Lian of the Blood Devil Palace was not only a disciple of the Blood Devil Palace, he was also a descendant of the Qi clan of the Western Domain, one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. Although Lin Xian'er was outstanding, against such an opponent, she would undoubtedly lose. Princess Zhaoyang and Qin Wentian stared at each other. Although Qin Wentian remained at the first monument, Princess Zhaoyang wouldn't underestimate Qin Wentian. She understood that Qin Wentian, who had already won a battle, had the qualifications to continue advancing forward. Yet, he chose to remain at his original location. This in itself required courage, and at the very least she didn't have the courage to do so. However, although she admired Qin Wentian's courage, she still chose Qin Wentian as her opponent. From her point of view, the remaining participants were all extremely famous. Most probably only Qin Wentian's fame was slightly weaker. Busy. Princess Zhaoyang's silhouette flickered. Her wings flickered as she bathed in the fiery light, resembling a miniature sun. Wielding a sharp sword in her hands, she fused together with the sword. This sword strike of hers was as dazzling as the sun. This was the power Princess Zhaoyang had comprehended from the first monument. Qin Wentian also moved. His golden-winged rock form actually retreated into the air before diving downwards. His lofty eyes shone with an unexcelled aura, akin to a true golden-winged rock, wanting to annihilate everything in its path. The light radiating from the 2 of them caused the spectators to not dare to look directly at them. Instantly, The gazes of the spectators from the other battlefields were drawn over. After which they saw Qin Wentian, who had been cultivating at the first monument, flying past Princess Zhao Yang. In the eyes of the spectators, only a resplendent golden light could be seen. On the other side of the floating bridge, Ouyang Guangxing and the rest were currently fighting against the D clan and the Skyhold sect. As for the spectators who were staring at the stone monument, they were all dumbfounded. Chapter 586. Princess Zhao Yang of the Guangzhou Empire had an illustrious status and outstanding talent, causing her to be renowned throughout the entire Guangzhou Empire. Princess Zhao Yang chose to clash against Qin Wentian on the stone monument. And just when everyone thought that Qin Wentian's journey in the immortal martial realm would come to an end here, he actually used a resplendent strike to tell everyone that in this world, there would always be some existences who weren't born so dazzling. But at some point in time, the radiance they radiated would cause even the heavens chosen to lose their luster. At that time, only then would he truly be recognized by everyone, and gradually step onto the stage of history. The current Qin Wentian caused the hearts of the spectators to involuntarily tremble. Would he become such an existence? From a nameless and unknown commoner, stepping onto the dazzling stage of the royal sacred region, creating an era that belonged solely to him. Maybe he would. Those from the Heavenhold sect and the Supreme D clan who were in the midst of battle saw the spectators collectively gasping in shock. Their gazes turned over, only to see Princess Zhao Yang being forced out of the stone monument, while the person she chose to battle against, Qin Wentian, was still standing firmly in front of the first row of stone monuments. Although he had already defeated 2 opponents, he still had no intentions of advancing forward. Princess Zhao Yang coughed out blood as her countenance paled. She stared dumbfoundedly at the young silhouette in front of her. Even now, she still hadn't recovered from the shock. That resplendent strike earlier, what was going on? Princess Zhao Yang's heart was still pounding unceasingly. A hint of desolation could be seen on her sun-like countenance, as a bitter smile appeared on her face. She had thought of many ways she would be eliminated. For example, she would be defeated in an intense battle against a supreme genius, or perhaps she would be defeated in a grand battle against the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. Maybe she wouldn't be as disappointed as she was right now. She was defeated in the hands of an opponent she had never taken seriously before. Everything about Qin Wentian was foreign to her. She only knew that this young man had extraordinary courage, and had even killed the little ancestor of the D clan. Bang! A light sound rang out as another silhouette was forced back. Only now did Princess Zhao Yang regain her senses as she stared at the person who had just been defeated. After which, a bitter smile could be seen on her face. The princess of the Guangzhou Empire and the prince of the Guangshang Empire, both of them had actually been defeated together. Their names would no longer be in the top 10 rankings of the immortal martial realm. Shang Tong's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. He had been defeated. Although he had lost to Ji Lufeng, he still felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. This was especially so when he discovered that Qin Wentian, who had stopped at the first stone monument, was still standing there. The rage in his heart grew even more intense, and he had no idea that Qin Wentian, who was still at the first stone monument, had already defeated Princess Zhao Yang who was beside him. How ironic, a person hiding at the back. If I had known earlier, I would have eliminated him from the competition. Shang Tong spoke in a light voice as he turned his head to glance at Princess Zhao Yang, a mocking smile on his face. Although Shang Tong's words weren't intentional, Princess Zhao Yang's countenance abruptly changed. Shang Tong's words, as well as his mocking gaze, seemed to be directed at Qin Wentian. But wasn't he also mocking her as well? One must know that the person Shang Tong was mocking was none other than the person who had defeated her earlier. Since you've already been eliminated, what qualifications do you have to comment on others? Princess Zhao Yang coldly snorted as she flicked her sleeves and departed. Her actions caused Shang Tong to be stunned as flames of anger burned in his heart. He felt that staying here was extremely shameful. Turning, Shang Tong's silhouette flickered as he flew towards the direction of the floating bridge. Just as he was about to leave, Lin Xian was also defeated by Qi Lian. This didn't exceed the expectations of the crowd. Although Lin Xian was strong, the 8 era-suppressing geniuses were all able to pass the test. Regardless of Ji Feishui or Qi Lian, both of them didn't disappoint the crowd. On the floating bridge, Shang Tong descended, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. Instantly, those who were staring at him all averted their gazes. Although Shang Tong had been defeated, to them whose cultivation bases were suppressed, Shang Tong was still in existence they couldn't contend against. Right now, Shang Tong was probably still in a state of rage. It was best not to antagonize him. Shang Tong soon discovered that there were actually people fighting on the floating bridge. Especially so when he saw Yi Lingshuang. A cold light akin to the edge of a blade flickered in his eyes. Yi Lingshuang, the daughter of the human emperor of Yi. She was the same as Ji Feishue and Qin Wentian, a disciple of the battle sword sect. Shang Tong thought back to the arrogance of the battle sword sect back then in Xianqing City. He coldly spoke, "The people of the battle sword sect truly think highly of themselves, stirring up trouble everywhere they go." Yi Lingshuang clashed with an expert from the Supreme D clan before they separated. After which, she coldly snorted when she saw the targeting in Shang Tong's eyes. However, she didn't refute him. After all, they were currently at a disadvantage. She didn't wish to make enemies out of them. Shang Tong coldly spoke when he saw Yi Lingshuang ignoring him. Back then, Yi Qingyun was also the top ranker of the immortal martial realm. But now, other than his daughter being somewhat beautiful, she doesn't even have any backbone. As for his other sons, all of them are trash. Yi Qingyun can be considered to have no qualified successors. You were defeated and eliminated by others, yet you still want to flaunt your might in front of us? How ridiculous! How could Yi Lingshuang endure the repeated provocations of Shang Tong? The coldness in Shang Tong's eyes grew even more intense. He stared at Yi Lingshuang as he took a step forward. A vast pressure bore down on Yi Lingshuang, causing her to be forced backwards. Shang Tong floated in the air, staring down at Yi Lingshuang as he icily spoke. "Even if you were defeated by Ji Feishue, you have no right to speak. Even if you are Yi Qingyun's daughter, I still have to discipline you on his behalf." As the sound of his voice faded, Shang Tong's palm trembled as a golden palm imprint abruptly slammed into Yi Lingshuang. Yi Lingshuang was flung through the air as she violently slammed into the ground, coughing out fresh blood as her robes were in disarray. Those from the Heavenhold sect and Supreme D clan rushed over, the smiles on their faces growing colder and colder. Earlier, although they were able to suppress Shang Tong, the fact that they couldn't defeat him even after such a long time caused the flames of anger to burn in their hearts. Fan Lu, Ouyang Feng and the others all stepped forward, glaring at Shang Tong with unsightly expressions. Shang Tong's cultivation base wasn't suppressed. It would be extremely easy for him to kill them. How fucking shameless. Fan Lu spat. Trash with no upbringing. Shang Tong stepped forward as an immense pressure enveloped everyone. Another palm imprint blasted out. Fan Lu and the others had no way to resist and were all flung through the air. At this moment, Shang Tong was already suppressing his anger. How could he allow Fan Lu and the others to refute him? Deal with them however you want. Shang Tong glanced at those from the Heavenhold sect and Supreme D clan as he coldly spoke. Those from the Supreme D clan and Heavenhold sect were extremely unhappy with Shang Tong's tone. After all, they were all extraordinary characters. It was just that their cultivation bases were suppressed. The arrogant look on Shang Tong's face really made them want to give him a good beating. But luckily, Shang Tong had helped them, hence they didn't hold it against him. They continued walking towards Yi Lingshuang and the others, their eyes flickering with a strange light as they stared at the two beauties, Yi Lingshuang and Yun Mangyi. An imperceptible coldness bore down on them. Turning their heads, they saw Princess Jiaoyang coldly glaring at them. After which, Princess Jiaoyang glanced at Shang Tong as she emotionlessly spoke. "How dare you all bully those whose cultivation bases are suppressed? When those from the battle sword sect return, wouldn't you all be seeking your own humiliation?" Evidently, although the arrogant Princess Jiaoyang had been defeated, she still felt contempt for Shang Tong's actions. Humph, Shang Tong coldly snorted. Although he understood that his actions were somewhat inappropriate, he wouldn't admit to it. At this moment, another silhouette arrived, attracting the attention of many. It was none other than Lin Xian. The Crown Prince of Grand Shang Empire, Shang Tong, is actually such a character. Lin Xian's eyes flickered with coldness, evidently looking down on Shang Tong. This caused Shang Tong to clench his fists tightly. How could he not be enraged when two beauties stared at him with disdain? His countenance turned exceptionally ugly to behold. When I, Shangtong, do things, I will do as I please. Why would I need others to tell me what to do? After speaking, he actually walked towards Yi Lingshuang and the others, as killing intent gushed forth from him. Princess Jiaoyang turned her gaze over as the contempt in her eyes grew even more intense. Although she looked down on Shangtong's actions, she couldn't be bothered to interfere in such matters. After all, this had nothing to do with her. I really can't stand the sight of this today. A cold killing intent gushed forth from Lin Xian, as she lunged towards Shangtong. Such a scene caused expressions of interest to appear on the faces of the spectators. Shangtong inclined his head, as the two of them faced off against each other. However, this battle ultimately didn't occur. The movements of the geniuses in front of the stone monuments seemed to have slowed down. Qin Wentian stayed in front of the first row for a total of 7 days before he finally moved to the second row. His perception gushed out, and after that, he walked towards one of the stone monuments as his will seeped into it. In the air, astral light flashed as resplendent runic light shone. Over there, a silhouette clad in astral armor stood proudly between the heavens and earth. The runic light from that stone monument frenziedly descended, landing on Qin Wentian. Very swiftly, Qin Wentian's body was also shrouded in a layer of astral light. What sort of energy was contained within this stone monument? Qin Wentian didn't even have the time to cultivate. Yet someone already invaded his stone monument, causing Qin Wentian to be speechless. He had never taken the initiative to invade the stone monuments of others before because he wanted to use more time to comprehend the energy within. He didn't want to waste even the slightest bit of time. When the spectators on the floating bridges saw the silhouette who invaded Qin Wentian's stone monument, they couldn't help but exclaim in shock. In their hearts, they were all thinking that Qin Wentian's trip to the immortal martial realm had finally come to an end. They were wondering how could this person be so patient. And now he finally couldn't endure it any longer and acted against Qin Wentian. Before this, I spared you because I knew I wouldn't be able to kill you in here. Hence, I didn't want to waste my time. But who would have thought that you would still be here? In that case, even if I can't kill you now, I can at least force you to scram out of here. Your life will be spared for now. Di Shi's tyrannical and domineering voice drifted over, containing an undefeatable conviction. That pair of lofty and sharp eyes stared disdainfully at the tiny silhouette of Qin Wentian. Chapter 587. Qin Wentian stared at Di Shi's silhouette, his pitch-black eyes flashing with a hint of wariness. Although he had a deep comprehension of the innate techniques within the first stone monument, he didn't dare to underestimate the era-suppressing genius Di Shi. Earlier when he entered the second row, he saw Di Shi standing before the third row. He used 7 days to comprehend 3 of the stone monuments, yet he still couldn't bear to continue forward. Evidently, he also sensed that he needed more time to comprehend the energy within the stone monuments. Since he chose to kill his way here at this moment, he naturally didn't come with good intentions. The astral energy transformed into a golden screen of light, causing Qin Wentian's body to be enveloped in a layer of golden light. His entire body was akin to a great rock, exuding a tyrannical aura. The first stone monument was to allow him to better comprehend the energy within it, allowing him to borrow the unique energy within to transform into a golden-winged great rock. But since he had already separated himself from the first stone monument, it was impossible for him to transform into a great rock. Not only that, he could only use the energy within the stone monuments. He tried to use other methods but discovered that they were all useless. But even if it was just an illusory golden light, Qin Wentian's silhouette still resembled a lofty great rock, exuding an intense sharpness. A demonic wind flickered around Di Shi, exuding a sinister coldness that unceasingly buffeted Qin Wentian. Vizi! The raging wind howled. Di Shi stepped out towards Qin Wentian in a domineering manner, akin to a true monarch. Stretching out his palms, his fingers were like hooks, grabbing towards Qin Wentian. Instantly, an incomparably fearsome golden claw directly tore through Qin Wentian's body. This claw was incomparably gigantic, akin to the claws of a ferocious bird, capable of tearing humans into pieces. Qin Wentian's entire body shone with a resplendent golden light as he arced through the air in a beautiful arc, directly evading this attack. His speed actually surpassed Disher's. The raging wind howled. Disher's eyes were ice cold as he chased after Qin Wentian. His 5 fingers struck out unceasingly, and in an instant, the terrifying claws of a ferocious bird tore through everything, unceasingly aiming for Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian continued evading. At the same time, his golden wings flapped outwards, seemingly indestructible, unceasingly slicing apart the claws aiming for him. At the same time, his palm slammed out unceasingly as a gigantic claw, even larger than Qin Wentian, wanting to envelop Qin Wentian. However, it was shattered by the golden light Wentian. Qin Wentian's palm. Of Qin. Although that attack wasn't as tyrannical as Disher's claw, Qin Wentian is actually able to defend against Disher's attack. The eyes of the spectators all flashed with similar expressions. Although Qin Wentian was at a disadvantage, relying on his speed to evade as well as his powerful attacks to shatter Disher's pressure, this still caused many to be shocked. Because in terms of single-target attacks, Qin Wentian's attacks were clearly stronger than Disher's. How could this not cause the spectators to be shocked? After a short exchange, Qin Wentian already knew where his advantage lay. Facing against Disher's frenzied attacks, he actually used his speed and attack advantage to counterattack. He no longer retreated but instead directly attacked in Disher's direction. One after another, the gigantic claws of the ferocious bird were shattered by Qin Wentian's attacks. Qin Wentian's body unceasingly pressed closer to Disher. Such a battle situation caused many to have strange expressions on their faces. Qin Wentian was facing against one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, Disher. Yet he actually counterattacked? As expected of Disher. He comprehended 3 different innate techniques within 7 days, and he could even cultivate both his attack and speed innate techniques to such a level. He truly isn't someone ordinary people can compare to. It's just that that fellow only comprehended a single type of energy within 7 days, causing his attack to be able to dominate any of Disher's individual techniques. If it was me instead of Disher, I'm afraid I would have been defeated by that fellow very quickly. Lin Xian stared at the battlefield as she spoke in a low voice. Princess Jiaoyang, who was not far away, nodded her head in agreement. She was insta-killed by Qin Wentian in a single strike. Disher has comprehended the power of 3 monuments, but he hasn't unleashed his full power yet. Princess Jiaoyang replied to Lin Xian through the air. In her heart, she was wondering if this fellow who insta-killed him would be able to deal with Disher's attacks. Just when Qin Wentian was about to reach Disher, resplendent runic lights abruptly flashed. Disher's entire body radiated a dazzling light as astral light erupted forth. Disher's body seemed to split into multiple incarnations of Disher, all of them simultaneously unleashing a powerful attack. In that instant, the power of the spatial lacerations blasted towards Qin Wentian, blotting out the skies as their might shook the heavens. It's over. Many in the crowd silently mused when they saw this. Qin Wentian, who was only an inch away from Disher, was also stunned. However, his reaction speed was extremely fast, and he didn't stop his advance. That pair of illusory golden wings arced through the air in a perfect arc, twisting and turning. His control and reaction speed and the time it takes for a spark to fly off a flint caused everyone to sigh in admiration. At the same instant, golden light filled the skies, enveloping his body. At the instant the first attack landed on him, the golden rock borrowed the recoil force to soar up into the skies. Pung pung pung. Numerous attacks landed on Qin Wentian, yet it only caused Qin Wentian's speed to increase. The follow-up attacks simply couldn't keep up with the speed of Qin Wentian's rock form. Qin Wentian soared through the air in a beautiful arc, groaning in misery. Even his original body coughed out a mouthful of blood. However, the eyes of his incarnation grew even sharper as he stared at Disher. It seemed like this battle wasn't going to be an easy one. Qin Wentian wasn't so arrogant as to think that he would be invincible just by relying on his comprehension of the first stone monument. Stopping before the first stone monument was already a form of risk in itself. Maybe if he was like Disher from the start, he wouldn't be weaker than Disher. However, this was his own choice and he didn't regret it. Disher couldn't help but to furrow his brows when he failed to destroy Qin Wentian earlier. After which, he continued pressing towards Qin Wentian, unceasingly unleashing his strongest attacks. However, The already prepared Qin Wentian relied on his advantage in speed and single-target attacks to forcefully fight against Di Shi. Unless Di Shi exploded out with an attack as powerful as the one earlier, he wouldn't be able to destroy Qin Wentian. Finally, Di Shi gave up. He retracted his will and started to comprehend the energy within the first stone monument. The diagram in the air vanished as the battle between the two returned to a state of silence. Such an ending caused the spectators on the floating bridges to be in an uproar. Di Shi actually failed to kick Qin Wentian out of the competition. Shang Tong's countenance changed. There was astonishment, heaviness, and reluctance. He was annihilated under Ji Feishua's attack, but Qin Wentian, who was on the same level as Ji Feishua, didn't suffer a crushing defeat. What did this mean? Shang Tong wasn't willing to admit it. Lin Xian's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, as well as anticipation. Princess Jiaoyang heaved a sigh of relief. Qin Wentian having such an ability would make her feel a little better in her heart, allowing her to accept the crushing defeat she had suffered against Qin Wentian. However, all of this seemed to have nothing to do with that young man. Qin Wentian still didn't launch any attacks. It was as though he had always been like this, silently comprehending the energy within the second stone monument. That was a terrifying energy that could pluck constellations from the heavens. He could see a blurry silhouette in the air, clad in astral armor. Intense runic lights flashed in his palms, as though he was speaking of words, yet also seemed corporeal. He brazenly unleashed an attack that could invade the heavens and destroy the constellations. This type of attack was somewhat similar to the star-seizing palm imprint of the star-seizing manner back then. However, the might of this attack couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. It was also somewhat similar to Di Shi's earlier claw attack. However, Di Shi's attack was more demonic and fiendish, while the energy before his eyes was more pure and heavy. It's actually an attack unleashed using the spiritual refinement method. Qin Wentian felt shock in his heart. He had never given up on the cultivation of the spiritual refinement method. This was also the reason why he could easily jump levels to fight against those stronger than him. However, the attack before his eyes had traces of the spiritual refinement method in it. That resplendent runic light condensed in his palms seemed to be formed from divine energy. Although it was similar, it wasn't as profound as the spiritual refinement method. Before each of the stone monuments, the number of geniuses present grew fewer and fewer. Those extremely famous characters were all eliminated one after another, including Qin Wentian's senior apprentice brother Duan Han. As for Gu Lufeng, he had already arrived before the fifth stone monument. The speed at which the geniuses comprehended the stone monuments slowed down, as though they had realized something. Or perhaps, they had gained some enlightenment from the battle between Di Shi and Qin Wentian. The 8 era-suppressing geniuses were all still present, as though they were announcing to everyone that they were as outstanding as ever. Only the interlude between Di Shi and Qin Wentian caused the hearts of the geniuses to tremble, causing no one else to continue challenging Qin Wentian. Right now, there were only less than 20 people remaining before the stone monuments. This caused the hearts of those on the floating bridges to pound. Maybe not too long later, the top 10 rankers of the immortal martial realm would be revealed. Most probably, the spectators in the outside world were all waiting with bated breaths, anticipating the arrival of that moment. But regardless of how tranquil the outside world was, all of this had nothing to do with Qin Wentian, who was focused on comprehending his newfound strength. He only knew that his goal was to advance steadily and steadily, increasing his strength. If he was fortunate enough to be the last one remaining, he would naturally be extremely happy. At the very least, he would be able to answer to his brothers who had assisted him in his battles. At the same time, he would also be able to put a smile on the face of that flawless and pure figure, who had been waiting outside the immortal martial realm. 7 days later, Qin Wentian, who had defeated 2 opponents, had no obstructions as he walked towards the 3rd row of stone monuments. This time around, he actually chose the stone monument which Di Shi had chosen before. Such a situation undoubtedly caused the eyes of many to widen as they stared at the young man who left a deep impression in their hearts. Right now, there were only 12 people remaining before the stone monuments. This young man who fought against Di Shi and didn't lose, as long as 2 more people were eliminated, he would become a dark horse and become one of the top 10 rankers of the immortal martial realm. At this moment, outside the immortal martial realm, that beautiful silhouette whom Qin Wentian had been longing for in his heart was still standing among the crowd from the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Her beautiful countenance was filled with nervousness, and her tender little hands were clenched tightly the moment she saw Qin Wentian's name on the stone monument. Staring at the floating words, she didn't care what Qin Wentian's ranking would be. She only hoped that when he stepped out of the immortal martial realm, he would still be as perfect as before. Chapter 588. Before the monument in the immortal martial realm, 12 silhouettes were quietly comprehending the energy within. These 12 were the 8 era-suppressing geniuses: Gu Lufeng, Ji Feishue from the Battle Sword Sect, Di Shi from the Supreme Clan, Li Tian from the Heaven Punisher Clan, Dongyue Hanjiang from the Eastern Mountain Country, Qi Lian from the Blood Devil Palace, Qi Lian from the Qi Clan of the Western Region, Holy Maiden Fan Miaoyu from the Forgotten Immortal Tower, and Hua Taishu from the Taishu sect. Among them, Fan Miaoyu was the only female among the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. She had the same identity as Qi Lian. She was the Holy Maiden of the Tianfan sect, and also a disciple of the Forgotten Immortal Tower. In the Royal Sacred Region, many geniuses from the aristocratic clans would send their disciples to the 9 great sects, allowing them to have a better cultivation platform. This wasn't strange at all. Not only that, if these geniuses reached a higher level in the future, the powers they were in would be more than happy to send them there. If they stayed in the sect and restricted the growth of others, that would simply be a short-sighted and selfish action. Some people were destined not to stay in the sect forever. The sect would only grant them their wish, allowing them to walk towards a more glorious stage. Among the 8, Gu Liufeng's fame was the highest, Fan Miaoyu's cultivation was the highest, Hua Taishu from the Taishu sect was the latest to rise to fame and was the most mysterious. As to why the cultivation bases of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses were all at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper or above, it was because when their cultivation bases were weak, their battle achievements wouldn't attract too much attention. Hence, only after they reached the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper would their glorious battle achievements be known to the world. Other than these 8, the other 4 out of the 12 were Qin Wentian from the Battle Sword Sect, Lu Bingyu from the Battle Sword Sect, Nangong Shuang from the Nangong Aristocrat Clan, and Si Ling from the Violet Thunder Sect. Si Ling was also a descendant of the Si Clan from the Grand Shang Empire. Of these 12, 3 were from the Battle Sword Sect: Ji Feishue, Lu Bingyu, and Qin Wentian. This also caused many to sigh in admiration. The individual combat prowess of the Battle Sword Sect was as tyrannical as ever. Lu Bingyu had always kept a low profile and rarely appeared in public. But because she was the doted personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, her reputation was known by many. However, this Qin Wentian was a complete dark horse. Even when Di Shi personally acted, he still failed to blast him out. The 12 of them were all quietly comprehending. Clearly, they were all more cautious now, and at the same time they were silently increasing their strength. This time around, Qin Wentian chose the stone monument Di Shi was cultivating on not long ago. In this stone monument, resplendent astral light could be seen flickering in the air. A silhouette stood proudly in the air. This silhouette was actually able to split into 1,000,000 copies in an instant, launching attacks at the same time, causing the hearts of those who saw it to tremble. This attack was none other than the innate technique Di Shi used to injure Qin Wentian. However, Di Shi's comprehension was only at the tip of the iceberg. The millions of copies of this silhouette in the air were extremely tyrannical and terrifying. In that instant, it felt as though the heavens and earth were about to collapse. Qin Wentian's deep eyes gleamed with excitement as he stared at the sky. Resplendent and resplendent, it was as though a starry sky could be seen in his eyes. If the innate technique of this stone monument was condensed into 1,000,000 copies and blasted out at the same time, even the constellations in the heavens and earth would be plucked from the sky. The might of this attack could truly shake the heavens and earth. How could Qin Wentian not be excited? This made him even more certain that his choice wasn't wrong. Hence, he steeled his heart and steadied his cultivation method, immersing himself in the comprehension of this stone monument. On the floating bridge, an expression of astonishment appeared on Ouyang Guangxing's face when he heard Yi Lingshuang's words. He stared at Yi Lingshuang as he pointed to a silhouette in front of a stone monument. "You said that person is Hua Taishu?" Yes, Hua Taishu from the Taishu sect. There were 2 battles that made him famous. The first was when he slew a fearsome expert with a high cultivation base, and the second battle was when he fought against one of the era-suppressing geniuses, Dongyue Hanjiang. He wasn't at a disadvantage at all, causing his fame to soar as he became the 8th era-suppressing genius. Yiling Shuang nodded. Ouyang Quangxing was still dumbfounded. In truth, Hua Taishu was still the idol of Ouyang Quangxing when he was younger, a character he wanted to surpass. He had naturally seen Hua Taishu before, but the heroic Hua Taishu from back then had changed. Regardless of his countenance or demeanor, he gave off an unfathomable feeling. But when he looked closely, Ouyang Quangxing could still recognize him. It's true. Ouyang Quangxing was stunned. Before this, although he had cast a glance at Hua Taishu because Hua Taishu's aura had changed, it was easy to overlook him when compared to the other 7. Hence, he didn't pay too much attention to Hua Taishu. Hence, he didn't recognize him. At this moment, he couldn't help but feel shocked in his heart. The most dazzling young genius of Granxia, Hua Taishu, had actually become so dazzling after coming to the royal sacred region. He was somewhat similar to Qin Wentian. After the battle in the immortal martial realm, Qin Wentian's name would surely shake the entire royal sacred region. Are you acquainted with him? Yiling Shuang stared at Ouyang Quangxing with a puzzled expression. This Hua Taishu is extremely mysterious. The first time I heard of him, I heard that he was accepted as a personal disciple by the sect leader of the Great Void sect. I'm acquainted with him. He was the idol of my youth. Back then, he was the top ranker on the Heavenly Fate rankings of Granxia. After that, Wentian also achieved the same level of success as him. Not only that, there's a grudge between Wentian and Hua Taishu. Ouyang Quangxing's words caused Yiling Shuang to be speechless. She didn't expect that there would be such a history between them. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingqing should have known each other for a very long time. No wonder their relationship was so good. In that case, Wentian should be able to recognize him as well, Yiling Shuang stated in a low voice. Qin Wentian should have heard of the names of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses before. Now that he saw Hua Taishu in person, he should be able to recognize him. That's for sure. This fellow is as calm as Hua Taishu. It's like they don't know each other. Ouyang Quangxing shook his head with a bitter smile. So what if he can't control his emotions? Don't tell me he would directly engage in a battle? Yiling Shuang laughed. Let's wait and see. Maybe they will use the stone monuments to fight against each other later on. Xiling is going to act against Lu Bingyu. Seems like he's accumulating the number of eliminations. If not, it would be even more difficult for him to advance to the next stone monument. Hence he chose Lu Bingyu. At this moment, Xiling invaded Lu Bingyu's stone monument. The battle between the 2 of them was extremely intense. Xiling cultivated a lightning-type innate technique, causing lightning to dance wildly in the air. However, Lu Bingyu was similarly powerful. Her defense was impenetrable. The 2 of them were evenly matched, and eventually, Xiling from the Violet Thunder sect gave up. After a few more days of peace, the participants quietly cultivated. Those on the floating bridges were all very patient, waiting quietly. Although these people were all patiently comprehending the stone monument, there would eventually be an earth-shattering battle. And as expected on the 5th day, Dongyue Hanjiang made his move against Nangong Shuang. This crown prince of the eastern mountain country, one of the era-suppressing geniuses, relied on his tyrannical attacks to forcefully force the talented Nangong Shuang out of the battle. The stone monument dimmed, and at this moment, there were only 11 participants remaining. The top 10 would soon be revealed. As long as one more person was eliminated, the top 10 would be officially confirmed. Many people clenched their fists tightly. Up till now, none of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses had been defeated. Other than the battle between Di Shi and Qin Wentian, which ended in a draw, they won all their other battles. No one knew if it was because Di Shi was one of the weakest among the 8, or because he chose Qin Wentian as his opponent. The 8 of them should be able to monopolize the top 8, right? Many people silently mused, as they clenched their fists tightly. They couldn't help but feel nervous. As long as one more person was eliminated, the top 10 would be revealed. This person should be either Qin Wentian, Lu Bingyu, or Xiling. Today, Qin Wentian halted his cultivation in the stone monument he was in. He wanted to exit the stone monument, But he suddenly realized that from the start until now, he had only defeated 2 people. Hence, he could only reach the 3rd row at most. Hence, if he wanted to continue forward, he had to eliminate 1 more person first. Seems like he had no choice but to take the initiative to fight. As he thought of this, a terrifying light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. After which, an invasive light radiated from the stone monument, enveloping the other stone monuments. An instant later, in the stone monument Di Shi was in, his eyes abruptly flashed with a dazzling light. There was actually someone who dared to take the initiative to invade his stone monument. Turning his eyes over, Di Shi saw Qin Wentian, who was bathed in golden astral light. The shadow of the golden-winged great rock enveloped him, and his lofty eyes were currently staring at him. The spectators on the floating bridges were all dumbfounded. Has he gone mad? He's taking the initiative to invade Di Shi's stone monument? Qin Wentian didn't choose Lu Bingyu or Si Ling. He chose Di Shi instead. Qin Wentian's previous battle was precisely against Di Shi. At that time, he had just exited the first stone monument and was suppressed by Di Shi. But because of his advantage in speed, he was undefeatable. But now he took the initiative to invade. Beautifully done, kill him. The light screen in front of Fan Lu had an expression of excitement on its face. Not far away, the countenances of those from the Di clan were all extremely grim as they coldly stated, courting death. Finally taking the initiative to invade? Will there be a surprise? Lin Xian'er's eyes flickered with a faint glow of excitement. As long as Qin Wentian won this battle, it would mean that the top 10 rankings would be decided. Di Shi would be kicked out of the top 10. The meaning behind that would be sufficient to cause the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns of the royal sacred region to tremble. This daddy is actually feeling a little nervous. Onyang Quangxing stared at the light screen projected by the stone monument as his heart pounded wildly. He understood Qin Wentian. Since this fellow took the initiative to invade, he definitely had the confidence to do so. You are truly courting death. Di Shi stared hatefully at Qin Wentian. He was the first among the 8 era-suppressing geniuses to be challenged. This was an extremely shameful matter. The flickering light in Qin Wentian's eyes continued to flicker. He moved, transforming into a beam of golden light that shot towards Di Shi with the speed of lightning. Bz. A raging wind gusted by as Di Shi similarly dashed towards Qin Wentian. Just like that, the 2 of them rushed towards each other, their eyes flickering with a terrifying sharpness and loftiness. Astral light circulated in Qin Wentian's palms, transforming into resplendent runic lights. After which, his palm abruptly shot out, blasting towards Di Shi. Di Shi similarly unleashed an attack, the talon of an incomparably gigantic ferocious bird. Bang! The talon of the gigantic ferocious bird was shattered into pieces by Di Shi's palm imprint. A force so powerful that it could pluck down constellations continued on its way towards Di Shi. Di Shi simultaneously blasted out with both his palms. The gigantic talon of the ferocious bird blasted out unceasingly, causing rumbling sounds to echo unceasingly. The talon was shattered into pieces, and the palm imprint was indomitable. Di Shi's body was forcibly forced backwards by the impact. Fuck. Fatty on the floating bridge grew even more excited. Wasn't this Di Shi so arrogant? In that case he would blast him out. The hearts of the others pounded unceasingly when they saw that golden silhouette diving down. In the first exchange earlier, Qin Wentian had the absolute advantage. Was he truly going to defy the heavens? Chapter 589. Qin Wentian swooped down, golden light illuminating the skies, exuding an unparalleled loftiness. His cold eyes seemed to be able to penetrate through the eyes of others. Di Shi was forced back with a single strike. With a howl of rage, a phenomenon manifested behind him. Numerous ferocious primordial birds appeared behind him, radiating a resplendent light that enveloped Di Shi's body as an even more terrifying baleful aura gushed forth. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's attack once again, Di Shi's body trembled. The resplendent light from the primordial birds exuded an aura of arrogance that could laugh at the 9 heavens. When he launched another attack, the gigantic claws of the primordial birds transformed into the primordial bird itself, lunging towards Qin Wentian with the power to tear the body of a human apart. Di Shi is retaliating. What a powerful attack. This should be an ability he cultivated from the fourth side of the monument. The attacks of the two collided once more, and the scene projected by the monument turned blurry. Bang bang bang. The resplendent astral light in Qin Wentian's palms flowed unceasingly as runic light radiated outwards, illuminating the surroundings. The light radiating from Di Shi's body radiated outwards as his baleful aura soared up into the skies. Numerous star-seizing palms blasted out, clashing against Di Shi's attacks unceasingly. As the two of them clashed, their bodies soared upwards, causing the space around them to shatter unceasingly. The spectators were all dumbfounded, their hearts filled with fascination. Qin Wentian's attacks are actually so powerful. He isn't at a disadvantage when fighting against Di Shi. Many people sighed in their hearts. Di Shi roared in rage when he saw the situation. Instantly, an even more resplendent light radiated from him, filling the entire space with his silhouette. The terrifying primordial birds all stared at Qin Wentian. Terrifying to the extreme. Die! Di Shi roared in rage, and in that instant, an overwhelming barrage of attacks blasted downwards. VZ. Astral light erupted forth. Qin Wentian's body was about to transform into 1,000,000 different incarnations of Qin Wentian. The palms of these incarnations all shone with resplendent light as runic light erupted forth, transforming into numerous star-seizing palms that blasted out in the direction of Di Shi. At this moment, the crowd only felt that the two of them had 3 heads and 6 arms. Di Shi's radiance was stronger because he had the shadow of the ferocious bird. But in reality, Qin Wentian's silhouettes were more numerous. Waves of destruction ravaged the scene projected by the monument. The images flickered blurry, as though they were on the verge of collapse. The spectators could faintly see Di Shi's body being forced backwards, after which Qin Wentian's speed increased even more. The golden rock in his form transformed into a golden beam of light, and after that, he unleashed numerous star-seizing palm imprints that shook the heavens and earth, wanting to destroy everything. The hearts of the spectators pounded unceasingly. Everyone on the floating bridges stared fixedly at the blurry scene before them as great waves of shock rose up in their hearts. That young man who had always been in a defensive stance had finally bared his fangs. Originally, Qin Wentian could have chosen to remain in a defensive stance and not fight. If that was the case, as long as one of the participants was eliminated, he would be able to enter the top 10 of the immortal martial realm. However, he didn't choose to do so. Instead, he took the initiative to launch an attack against Di Shi. His self-confidence caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. The blurry screen of light abruptly shattered as the hearts of the spectators pounded violently. After which, they saw Di Shi's body being forced back to the first row of monuments as he coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. Right now, Di Shi's crooked back was completely different from the lofty aura he exuded earlier. It was as though in that instant, the halo of light enveloping him had been shattered by the cruelest of methods. How cruel, how hard it was for the spectators to accept. However, this was the truth, transforming into waves of gigantic waves that blasted against the hearts of the spectators. One of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, Di Shi, was defeated. Although this wasn't a battle of true strength, the immortal martial realm was extremely fair. Under the same conditions, Di Shi was defeated by Qin Wentian. This meant that although Qin Wentian's combat prowess was inferior to Di Shi's, his potential was still higher than Di Shi's. This was a battle where an era-suppressing genius fell. This time around, Di Shi's name would no longer be in the top 10 rankings of the immortal martial realm. The meaning behind this battle was extraordinary. The spectators were all thinking that although Di Shi was defeated by Qin Wentian, he should still be stronger compared to Lu Bingyu and Si Ling. Sadly, that lofty young man had trampled on him, an era-suppressing genius, to rise up. With just this battle, Qin Wentian's fame would skyrocket. Countless gazes landed on Qin Wentian. At this instant, the halo of light radiating from Qin Wentian was even more dazzling compared to the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. It was as though he wanted to use this battle to announce that he had replaced Di Shi, stepping into the ranks of era-suppressing geniuses. The spectators couldn't help but recall the conflict between Qin Wentian and Di Shi. It was rumored that Di was arrogant and despotic, insulting Qin Wentian's friends and even lusting after the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Qin Wentian wanted to kill Di, but was stopped by Di Shi. Not only that, the domineering Dishur fought a great battle, wanting to kill Qin Wentian and his friends cleanly. At that time Dishur was unexcelled in the world. Only when Ji Feishue appeared did he manage to obstruct him, after which, Qin Wentian used his extreme determination and guts to kill Diyu in front of Dishur before leaving. In that battle, although Qin Wentian's actions caused everyone to admire his courage, he still didn't have the strength to face Dishur directly. In the eyes of the spectators, he and Dishur weren't on the same level. Hence, they all believed that when Dishur invaded Qin Wentian's stone monument, it would be Qin Wentian's final battle in the immortal martial realm. Sadly, Dishur didn't manage to expel Qin Wentian. On the contrary, Qin Wentian managed to expel him. Such a counterattack, if one were to think back on it in detail, was undoubtedly a hot-blooded and inspiring story. Qin Wentian completed his transformation in the immortal martial realm, trampling Dishur beneath his feet. Right now, who would still dare to underestimate this low-profile young man from the Battle Sword sect? He only used a single invasion to shatter all doubts, telling everyone that the prologue of his legend had only just begun. Beautifully done! Fatty on the floating bridge roared in excitement. The fats on his face were all flushed red from his agitation. Chu Meng and Ouyang Guangxing also roared in a low voice. Although they felt that no matter how hard they tried, the distance between them and Qin Wentian was still widening, they were still happy for him. The young man who once held Mo Qingqing's hand on the Heavenly Fate ranking platform and announced to the entire world, had finally made his voice heard in the royal sacred region. They believed that this battle had only just begun. Even for the cold Yun Manyi at this moment, a radiant light flickered in her eyes. Qin Wentian had finally stepped onto the path of ascension. Princess Zhaoyang, who was not far away, heaved a sigh of relief. Since even Dishur was defeated by Qin Wentian, her defeat could also be accepted. It was just that her luck was bad, choosing to fight against him too early. Lin Xian'er's eyes were still filled with a faint smile as her lips curled up in an arc. Her beauty was incomparably beautiful. As for those from the D clan, their countenances were all ashen. Dishur was defeated, ranked outside the top 10 of the immortal martial realm. After Qin Wentian defeated Dishur, he didn't proceed to the fourth row of monuments. Right now there were only 10 participants remaining. Defeating Dishur would only be sufficient for him to enter the fourth row. But this clearly wasn't his limit. In order to avoid an even more difficult battle, he might as well eliminate one more participant. When Si Ling saw Qin Wentian invading his monument, his countenance turned extremely unsightly. Lightning crackled around him as he stared at the lofty eyes of Qin Wentian. It was as though he could see an intense ambition in them. Vizi! A raging wind gusted as golden light flashed. Qin Wentian dashed towards Si Ling with a speed as quick as lightning. Si Ling's speed obviously couldn't compare to Qin Wentian's. It was impossible for him to evade. He could only face it head-on. Hence, the spectators only saw numerous palm imprints that could pluck down constellations slamming downwards, directly eliminating Si Ling from the competition. If one were to ask the spectators to evaluate this battle, there would only be 2 words that would be the most appropriate. Tyrannical slaughter. Si Ling was blasted back to the first row as he coughed out fresh blood. He stared at Qin Wentian with an extremely unsightly countenance. He would never have guessed that the reason why Qin Wentian invaded his monument was because he wanted to eliminate one more participant. If he knew the reason, he would definitely be so angered that he would cough out a few more mouthfuls of blood. There's already 9 participants. Si Ling should be ranked number 10 in the immortal martial realm, but in truth, his strength should be inferior to Dishur. Someone commented. However, this Qin Wentian is truly a freak. He clearly could have easily swept Si Ling into the top 10. Yet he chose Dishur instead. This isn't something that can be described with the word confidence. It's simply arrogance. Others have the qualifications to be arrogant. If you can defeat Dishur, you can be as arrogant as well. Someone at the side replied, his words causing the spectators to nod their heads in agreement. Evidently, ever since the battle where Qin Wentian defeated Dishur, his status had already changed. Everyone understood that his rise was unstoppable. Only now did Qin Wentian walk towards the fourth row of monuments. He quietly sensed the energy emanating from the unoccupied monuments, and an instant later, He sensed a different aura from one of the monuments. Faintly, it caused a portion of the incantation in his sea of consciousness to glow with a resplendent light, causing a strange light to flash in Qin Wentian's eyes. That unknown incantation I obtained during the pagoda battle earlier was able to affect the energy within my body, causing me to feel extremely unbearable. Could it be that it has something to do with this monument? Qin Wentian mused. This is it. Qin Wentian walked to the front of the monument. He believed in his own intuition. Maybe the incantation he learned earlier was all for this moment. If he couldn't reach this step, that incantation would be equivalent to a waste. Walking to the front of the monument, Qin Wentian sent his will into it. The monument glowed with a resplendent light as his will fused with it. This time around, what appeared before Qin Wentian was a giant from the primordial era, capable of suppressing the heavens and earth. In the air, gigantic ancient characters directly pierced into Qin Wentian's sea of consciousness, faintly resonating with the incantation in his sea of consciousness. In an instant, rows of gigantic characters floated before his eyes as the incantation grew clearer and clearer. Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art. 5 gigantic characters appeared in his sea of consciousness, causing Qin Wentian's heart to pound violently. The Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art was yet another immortal level art. This should be the greatest reward he obtained in the immortal martial realm. The rumors about the immortal martial realm had already become clearer. Since there were immortal level arts here, there was no doubt that the master of the immortal martial realm was an immortal. Not only that, there was a high possibility that the master of the immortal martial realm wasn't an ordinary immortal. This point should be known by those who obtained the top few rankings in the immortal martial realm, or the upper echelons of the various sects and clans. Chapter 590. The immortal martial realm was known as the burial ground for heaven's chosen, but there were still countless experts rushing over. Regardless of disciples from the 9 great sects, princes and princesses of ancient countries, or even saint children and holy maidens from the great sects, all of them were here to participate in this banquet. It was unknown how many people died in the immortal martial realm, but the moment they arrived before the stone monuments, they would start to reap the rewards. Each and every stone monument contained a type of energy within it. If there was someone like him who obtained the first rank in the test of the pagoda and obtained the incantation, they might even have a chance to find a cultivation art that was compatible with them. Qin Wentian understood that if he didn't have the incantation in his mind, this stone monument would be the same as the previous ones, a type of innate technique. He also understood that if he didn't manage to reach the 4th row of monuments, the incantation would be wasted. Advancing step by step, only those who obtained the recognition of the immortal martial realm would have a chance to obtain an immortal art. At this moment, Qin Wentian also understood that in the vast royal sacred region, there were many who had cultivated immortal arts before. For those dazzling characters of the immortal martial realm, there would definitely be a few who obtained an immortal art. But for such matters, they would only tell the people closest to them and wouldn't leak it out. Immortal arts, who wouldn't covet them? Even if they obtained it, they couldn't reveal it. It was the same as if they didn't obtain it. Hence, the fact that the master of the immortal martial realm was an immortal was a rumor, and not something everyone knew. Because those who knew kept their mouths shut while those who didn't know could only speculate. I wonder if Di Shi obtained an immortal art or not. Qin Wentian mused. He didn't know if Di Shi obtained an incantation like him or not. Even if he did, he couldn't be sure which row the incantation would be able to resonate with Di Shi. If Di Shi had the incantation but didn't obtain an immortal art, his hatred for him would definitely be even deeper. The Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art, suppressing the heavens and earth, becoming an immortal with a single thought, becoming a devil with a single thought. Just as well in the future, Di Tian and I will each cultivate a set of immortal arts. Di Tian will still focus on cultivating the Great Dream Immortal Art, while I will cultivate the Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art. The Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art contains the power of body refinement and cannot be shared. Hence, it is more suitable for my true body to cultivate it. As long as Di Tian cultivates the Great Dream Immortal Art, I will be able to use it as well. Qin Wentian thought in his heart, feeling extremely excited. Now, in the truest sense, he already had 4 types of immortal arts. Most likely, there weren't many people in the entire Absolute Monarch Sanctuary who could do the same as him. Out of these 4 sets of immortal arts, one was an immortal type art, the Great Nirvana Immortal Art. It could allow one to create another body with heaven-defying might. As for the other 2, they were the Great Dream Immortal Art and the Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art. Both had to be slowly cultivated, and the last one was an attack-type immortal art, the Immortal Vanquishing Swordplay Art. Right now, he basically didn't dare to use this. The might of an attack-type immortal art was simply too terrifying. He wouldn't be able to bear the burden of using it. However, as he grew stronger in the future, he would be able to unleash the might of the Immortal Vanquishing Swordplay sooner or later. This Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art contains an innate technique. If I don't have the incantation in my mind, what would appear before my eyes would only be this innate technique. But even so, it would still be extremely powerful. Qin Wentian mused as he started his cultivation. It was clearly impossible for him to cultivate the Fiend God Heavenly Suppression Art in the Immortal Martial Realm. Unless one day he broke through to the legendary Immortal Realm, only then would he be considered to have succeeded in cultivating this art. Right now, he could at most only be at the entry level. However, this didn't affect Qin Wentian's decision to cultivate the innate techniques first, so that he could deal with the battles in the Immortal Martial Realm. Fan Miaoyu is going to act against Lu Bingyu. At this moment, the people on the floating bridge who had been silent for so long were once again in an uproar. Fan Miaoyu's original cultivation base was at the 9th level of Heavenly Dipper. In the Royal Sacred Region, she was an unrivaled existence at the Heavenly Dipper realm. If one were to say that there was a limit to the Heavenly Dipper realm, Fan Miaoyu belonged to that limit. In fact, there were even people who said that Fan Miaoyu might even be able to defeat Celestial Phenomenon Ascendants. The 8 era-suppressing geniuses could easily jump levels to fight against Celestial Phenomenon Ascendants. But for Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, this wasn't something that could be described with the words jumping levels. It was a qualitative change. Hence, no matter how outstanding a genius was, they couldn't guarantee that they would be able to step over this chasm. Lu Bingyu's journey in the Immortal Martial Realm is about to end. Many people mused in their hearts. Although Lu Bingyu's strength caused many to be pleasantly surprised, the fact that she was ranked number 9 in the Immortal Martial Realm should be worthy of her strength. After all, even Di Shi was eliminated in advance. Fan Miaoyu had already walked to the 5th row of monuments. She had cultivated 5 different types of innate techniques while Lu Bingyu was on the 4th row, cultivating 4 different types of innate techniques. The 2 of them battled against each other, but there wasn't any sign of them slaughtering each other. On the contrary, if one were to talk about a single type of innate technique, Lu Bingyu didn't seem to be any weaker compared to Fan Miaoyu. This indicated that Lu Bingyu's comprehension ability wasn't inferior to hers. After all, using the power of the monuments to battle, everyone's starting point was the same. They could only borrow the energy within the monuments, and since their cultivation bases were the same, their innate techniques could only be used to comprehend the innate techniques within the monuments. Ultimately, because Lu Bingyu lacked combat experience and the usage of her innate techniques, she was still defeated not long after. But even so, her potential was clear for all to see. However, when the spectators saw such a battle, a strange feeling appeared in their hearts. Not long ago, Lu Bingyu and Si Ling had no way to defeat each other. Yet Si Ling was slaughtered by Qin Wentian. This meant that if Qin Wentian fought against Lu Bingyu, it would be a one-sided slaughter. However, Fan Miaoyu didn't manage to do so. In that case, what did this mean? As they thought of this, the hearts of the spectators pounded. Fan Miaoyu chose Lu Bingyu as her opponent. Was she trying to probe Qin Wentian's strength? Many people stared at the silhouette of a young man on the 4th row. That fellow who defeated Di Shi, it seemed like he wanted to enter the top 5 or even higher. This time around, a dark horse had appeared. There are only 8 people left. Di Shi is ranked 11th, Si Ling is 10th and Lu Bingyu is 9th. Someone stated in a low voice, as though this was nonsense. But when they thought of the hidden meaning behind it, the hearts of many involuntarily pounded. 8 people, 8 era-suppressing geniuses. What was this hinting at? After Fan Miaoyu defeated Lu Bingyu, the area before the stone monument was silent for a long period of time. The remaining 8 people were all quietly comprehending their insights. Over 10 days later, Qin Wentian stepped towards the 5th row. His speed had already caught up to the majority of the participants. Out of the remaining 8, including Qin Wentian, there were 6 of them standing before the 5th row. Interesting. Lin Xian'er smiled. Qin Wentian had already advanced to the 5th row. What this signified was already self-evident. Before this, Qin Wentian started from the 1st row and used the longest amount of time to comprehend his insights. Hence, he was at a disadvantage at the start and was injured by Di Shi, almost facing the danger of being eliminated. But because his foundation was extremely stable, Qin Wentian would only grow stronger and stronger. By the time he finished comprehending the 3rd row, he would have already thrown Di Shi out. Now, Qin Wentian had already advanced to the 5th row. The number of monuments he comprehended wouldn't be any less than the others. What would the ending be? He was really looking forward to it. There's still the 6th and 7th row. I need to defeat 2 more people before I can reach the end. Right now, there are only 8 people remaining. I can't wait any longer. Qin Wentian silently mused. If he didn't defeat 2 more people, he wouldn't be able to reach the final row. This was something he didn't want to see. Not only Qin Wentian had such thoughts, the others had the same thoughts as well. Right now, other than Gu Lufeng and Hua Taishu who were at the 6th row, the others were all at the 5th row. However, Gu Lufeng had already defeated 6 people. It was sufficient for him to reach the final row. Hence, he didn't need to defeat any more opponents. What he wanted to do now was to seriously comprehend his insights. Hua Taishu was still lacking 1 person. Hence, he initiated an attack. His target was none other than Ji Feishue from the Battle Sword sect. At the same time, Li Tian had already infiltrated Dongyue Hanjiang's monument. Evidently, he understood that he had to act now. Qin Wentian first chose an ancient monument. After that, he didn't even have time to comprehend his insights before he infiltrated Qi Lian's monument. Upon seeing this scene, the hearts of the spectators pounded madly. 3 supreme battles actually began at the same time. Among the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, the most mysterious one is Hua Taishu. He chose Ji Feishue. Back then, Ji Feishue's cultivation base was the weakest among the 8 era-suppressing geniuses. When he entered the immortal martial realm, his cultivation base was only at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper. I wonder what the outcome of this battle would be. Li Tian from the Heaven Punisher clan and Dongyue Hanjiang, the crown prince of the Eastern Mountain Country, both of them are proficient in combat. I wonder what kind of energy they cultivated in the monuments, but I'm sure it's something that's in line with their nature. If these 2 were to fight in the outside world, it's still hard to predict who would win. As for the battle between Qin Wentian and Qi Lian, a strange feeling appeared in the hearts of the spectators. They felt that the battle between this dark horse was the clearest. Qin Wentian's chances of victory were extremely high. A character who wasn't one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses was actually the most favored. If this was in the past, it would be extremely ridiculous. But for some reason, many people now felt that Qin Wentian's chances of victory were extremely high. Because they had personally witnessed Qin Wentian's steady progress, advancing step by step. The battle between Hua Taishu and Ji Feishue began. Hua Taishu stepped out, giving off an illusory feeling, as though he wasn't real at all. Ji Feishue had cultivated several types of energy in the monument, but the most important one was still his sword arts. A row of ancient swords hummed as they slashed through the air, incomparably resplendent. However, Hua Taishu was still as carefree as before. When the sword light slashed onto his body, it was as though it was nothing more than an illusory shadow. He was everywhere and his entire body was surrounded by resplendent halos of light, giving off a feeling that everything was unreal. Ji Feishue is most probably going to be defeated. This Hua Taishu's strength far surpasses our imaginations. The hearts of the spectators trembled. As for the other battlefield, Li Tian transformed into a giant, trampling the heavens and earth, suppressing the heavens. In the 4th row, Qin Wentian chose the monument that contained the fiend god heavenly suppression art. Li Tian had also cultivated it before, but he didn't obtain a cultivation art, only an innate technique. Chapter 591. Li Tian's attacks were as tyrannical and domineering as he was in the external world. However, Dongyue Hanjiang didn't lose out in the slightest and actually clashed head-on with Li Tian. Both of them exuded an unexcelled aura, their might towering up to the heavens as their battle was extremely intense. Out of the three battles, Qin Wentian's battle was the quietest. Qi Lian and Qin Wentian stood facing each other. Qi Lian's entire body radiated an intense blood-colored devilish might, resembling a devil. Behind him, a resplendent devil phantom manifested as chaotic qi currents gushed forth, shaking the heavens and earth. However, when he stared at Qin Wentian, his gaze didn't contain the slightest bit of contempt. On the contrary, his gaze was extremely solemn. He was very clear that Qin Wentian, who cultivated steadily from the first step, was an extremely dangerous character. In fact, there was a high possibility that he was one of the most dangerous characters here. When the 8 era-suppressing geniuses stepped onto the stone monuments, they all adopted a balanced stance, comprehending the energy within while not delaying their own progress. This was especially so when they saw others advancing forward. They didn't want to fall behind. It was only until they reached the 4th and 5th row did they begin to slow down, using more time to comprehend the energy within. For a situation like Qin Wentian's, the best way to deal with it would be to kick him out as soon as possible. Sadly, Dishur didn't manage to do so back then, and in the end Dishur was even blasted out by him. This made them understand that they had missed the best opportunity to deal with Qin Wentian. Right now, Qin Wentian had already become an extremely dangerous character. Staring at Qin Wentian, Qi Lian's devilish might gushed forth as a blood-colored light illuminated the skies. His entire body was enveloped by a blood-colored runic light, blotting out the sun. Very swiftly, the scene projected by the stone monument turned the color of blood, as though numerous devil kings were howling in rage. Boom! Trampling on the void, Qi Lian seemed to have transformed into a demon. He stared at Qin Wentian, his eyes filled with a terrifying penetrative power. The power of destruction was astonishing. Upon seeing such a scene, the hearts of many on the floating bridges trembled violently. Before this, they all faintly felt that Qin Wentian would be able to defeat Qi Lian. But now, when they saw the tyrannical might radiating from Qi Lian, they couldn't help but doubt their own conjectures. After all, none of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses were simple characters. Qi Lian was different from Dishur. He had also spent a long time comprehending the last 2 stone monuments. He should be much stronger compared to the time when Dishur was eliminated. Qi Lian lifted his hand and blasted out a palm imprint. It was as though all the blood-colored light in the world swept out like a flood, rushing towards Qin Wentian. It was as though a terrifying devil was wielding a great halberd as it rushed over. Qin Wentian felt as though there was a giant standing in front of him. Golden light radiated from his body as Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered as he soared through the air. Instantly, astral light enveloped him as his body grew taller, transforming into an immortal fiend god that could suppress the heavens and earth. Boundless astral light cascaded down from the heavens, cascading onto him. This giant abruptly manifested many illusions as he blasted out palm imprints that could pluck down the sun, moon and constellations, crushing the heavens and earth. This shocking scene caused the hearts of many to pound unceasingly. It was as though even their breathing had stagnated. The palm imprints destroyed everything. The blood-colored demonic halberd was destroyed under the astral light. Qi Lian still stood there arrogantly, yet a hint of desolation could be seen in his tyrannical eyes. He was already very strong, but who would have thought that a strange existence would appear in the immortal martial realm this time around? A strange existence named Qin Wentian. Bang! A fearsome might blasted over as Qi Lian was blasted out of the monument by Qin Wentian. This battle was the last one to erupt, but it was also the earliest to conclude. The powerful Qi Lian was defeated by Qin Wentian just like that. His ranking on the monument this time around was number 8. Many people on the floating bridges drew in a deep breath, feeling that the scene before their eyes was too surreal. Seems like the path of the young man from the battle sword sect was truly unstoppable. It seemed like everyone had underestimated him when it came to ranking within the top 5. Li Tian and Dongyue Hanjiang were still engaged in a violent battle. Hua Taishu's body was shrouded by boundless halos of light that were both illusory and real, unfathomable, just like his mysterious name. However, Ji Feishua wasn't someone to be trifled with. His sword arts were extraordinary, combining both offense and defense into one, with no flaws at all. After Qin Wentian defeated Qi Lian, he didn't stop his invasion. After which, he proceeded to enter Fan Miaoyu's monument, causing the spectators to be dumbfounded. The low-profile young man before had now completely unleashed his fangs. So what if he was one of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses? No one would be able to obstruct his advancement. As long as he defeated Fan Miaoyu, it would be sufficient for him to walk all the way to the 7th row of the monument. After cultivating all 7 types of energy, he would be the same as Gu Lufeng, the greatest winner in the immortal martial realm. Unless there was someone who could blast him out of the monument before he reached the 7th row. But obviously it was impossible. Currently, Gu Lufeng was busy with his cultivation and wouldn't take the initiative to battle again. If Hua Taishu defeated Ji Feishue, he would be able to safely walk to the 7th row of the monument. Naturally, he wouldn't look for anyone else to battle, unless they had to wait until the final battle, when they had to contend for the rankings of the immortal martial realm. Fan Miaoyu was a disciple of the Forgotten Immortal Tower from one of the 9 great sects, as well as the holy maiden of the Tianfan sect. Her long hair was tied up in a bun, and although she wasn't old, she exuded a sense of nobility and elegance. This kind of beauty was even slightly demonic, completely opposite to Lu Bingyu's temperament. Her eyes were limpid, yet there seemed to be many stories within them. It was as though her eyes could speak. I've thought of many possibilities, but I didn't expect such an ending. Fan Miaoyu's voice was very clear, giving off a sense of elegance. Evidently, she was surprised that the person who eliminated her was a young man she had never paid attention to before. Qin Wentian had already eliminated Di Shi, domineeringly defeating Qi Lian. Although Fan Miaoyu was someone extraordinary, she also knew that she had no chance of winning this battle. The times are changing, Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. A beautiful smile appeared on Fan Miaoyu's red lips as she stared at the young man in front of her. That's right, the times are changing. For those characters who once exuded magnificence throughout their generations, which of them didn't trample on the bodies of others to rise up? After the immortal martial realm, your name will surely shake the entire royal sacred region. However, this doesn't mean that the 8 era-suppressing geniuses have already been defeated. This is only the immortal martial realm. If you want to replace them, you still have to prove yourself in the outside world. I'll wait and see, who will you trample on, becoming an existence that can dazzle the entire era. I will. Qin Wentian nodded his head as he released his own astral light. At the same time, Fan Miaoyu also unleashed her own power. Although she knew she would lose to her opponent in this battle, she still wanted to do it in a spectacular manner. This battle was extremely fascinating, and the ending was undoubtedly Fan Miaoyu being defeated by Qin Wentian. However, other than a trace of desolation, she didn't reveal any other emotions. Just like what Qin Wentian had said, the times were changing. When an era-suppressing genius rose up, there would naturally be others who would be used as foils. Sadly, she was one of them. The other 2 battles had yet to conclude. Fan Miaoyu's ranking was fixed at number 7 by Qin Wentian. An instant later, Ji Feishue was finally defeated by Hua Taishu. There were no miracles. His ranking was fixed at number 6 in the immortal martial realm. The battle between Li Tian and Dongyue Hanjiang was the most intense, shaking the heavens and earth. Eventually, Li Tian narrowly won against Dongyue Hanjiang. This indicated that Dongyue Hanjiang's ranking would be number 5 in the immortal martial realm. From number 5 to number 10, the rankings were all out. They were Dongyue Hanjiang, Ji Feishue, Fan Miaoyu, Qi Lian, Lu Bingyu, and Xiling. The remaining 4 would become the top 4. These 4 were Gu Lufeng, Hua Taishu, Li Tian, and Qin Wentian. The competition in the immortal martial realm was also nearing its end. The one who caused the most surprise in this battle was naturally Qin Wentian, followed by Hua Taishu. Out of the 8 era-suppressing geniuses, Qin Wentian alone eliminated 3 of them. Such a battle record. No one else could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Right now, the most awkward one should be Li Tian. He needed to defeat one more person before he could reach the 7th row. But for the remaining 3, just thinking about it caused people to feel despair. Gu Lufeng, Hua Taishu, and Qin Wentian, if there were no accidents, they would already be the top 3 rankers of the immortal martial realm. Before this, who would have thought that Qin Wentian would be one of the top 3 rankers? Not only that, among the 9 great sects, 7 great clans, as well as the 2 empires, There's only one such person. Neither Gu Lufeng nor Hua Taishu is Qin Wentian. The spectators sighed in their hearts. If the spectators outside saw such an ending, they would surely be shocked speechless. Di Shi had been observing the battle from the first row. At this moment his fists were tightly clenched as killing intent flashed in his eyes. He stared at Qin Wentian, his killing intent flickering in and out of existence, unmasked. He, Di Shi, hadn't even obtained an immortal art and was already eliminated by Qin Wentian. Not long ago, Qin Wentian didn't even dare to face him head-on. But now, Qin Wentian, who killed his younger brother, had actually defeated him in the immortal martial realm. Let alone Di Shi, even Ji Feishu and Duan Han were in a daze. Right now, there were only 3 from the battle sword sect here. Ji Feishu, Duan Han and Lu Bingyu. Who would have thought that the one to walk till the end would be Qin Wentian? Junior brother Qin, what a pleasant surprise. Ji Feishu had a bitter smile on his face. His heart was filled with complex emotions. Lu Bingyu stared at the silhouette before her as waves of emotions rose in her heart. She then glanced at Ji Feishu beside her as she mused that from today onwards, Qin Wentian's status in the battle sword sect would be on the same level as Ji Feishu's. Outside the immortal martial realm, on the gigantic stone monument, over 70 names flashed unceasingly. Each and every one of these names was extremely famous in the royal sacred region, including Gu Lufeng and the other 8 era-suppressing geniuses. But what would the final ranking be like? I wonder how many steps have we reached now? The top 10 should have already been decided. Who would be in the top 10 this time around? Many people speculated. The 8 era-suppressing geniuses should occupy 8 spots. As for the other 2, it might be Xiling from the Violet Thunder sect. After all, he's extremely powerful, or the Saint Child of the Supreme Demon sect. Naturally, Lu Bingyu from the Battle Sword sect, Nangong Shuang from the Nangong aristocrat clan, and the great beauty Lin Xian all have high hopes. That makes sense. But for the top 3, I think the first place would be Gu Lufeng, the second place would be Fan Miaoyu, and the third place would be Li Tian. I guess the first place would be Gu Lufeng, the second place would be Qi Lian, and the third place would be Di Shi. Many people were speculating in low voices. The number 1 spot was none other than Gu Lufeng. As for the second and third place, everyone had their own opinions. However, Hua Taishu didn't appear much in the top 3. After all, he was the latest to rise to fame. As for Qin Wentian, he didn't even appear in the top 10. After all, outsiders couldn't see the situation inside. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.